Hey, good morning everyone. Are you ready to once again follow a bunch of weird women around, watching them go through their daily lives and attempting to figure out if one, they're gay, two, something supernatural is happening, and three, whether they murdered anyone? I am. I was just like hit with like a wave of very recent nostalgia where I was like, I want to go back and listen to the full opening this time. Nostalgia for like 2 weeks ago when I listened to it the first time. It just sounds so cool. So I don't have my usual teapot because I made tea to just have for breakfast with my enormous Costco muffin. And then the fucking Costco muffin turned into an ordeal. Some kind of endurance challenge, and I didn't get much of the tea down, which might have helped with the giant dry I'm looking over there because I didn't finish it. This is... I don't know if you could tell from the corpse of this muffin, but it was huge. It was bigger than my hand, both my hands, like... It's this much muffin. It was big! I can't convey to you the size of a Costco muffin. Sometimes breakfast is really hard. My brother and I had a boys' night at our place last night, so we went to Costco, but when you go to Costco with the aim of planning for an event, you forget how much humans actually eat, and you just think, oh, we can get the super huge Costco quantities because there's people coming over and we could feed them. Now I have a lot of muffins I need to eat. Some mediocre dessert slices. Yeah, I also don't know how much people eat in general. Like, if I'm dealing with, like, food that I have in my house, at that point I'll start doing, like, maths and I'll, like, ask questions, like, okay, who's hungry? How many people are coming? You know, is anybody on, like, a diet or you have, like, meat restrictions or any of those rules? But no, if you just let loose in Costco, it's just like, yep. This much of a lamb roast. You can't even see my hands on the screen. Yeah, big lamb roast. My brother was like, you gotta clean the barbecue so I can do the lamb roast and the barbecue. And I was like, fuck yes, sir. And I spent all of Saturday cleaning the barbecue. And guess who cooked it in the oven? Thanks, boy. Anyway, we know I did talk about that. We are here to return to Lynbarrow Abbey. Now you can barbecue something. Yeah, see, I was barbecuing things before, just on the gross barbecue. But I did get bratwurst at Costco too, so those are going to chuck a wurst on the barbie. There you go. That's my heritage. Sorry for the gross mouth noises when I'm drinking. I'm trying to sweep the dry muffin out of my mouth. This is disgusting. I'm sorry, mouth noises are terrible. I hate listening to them for other people, and I come on here and it was like, swish, swish. Anyway, we're going back to Lynbarrow Avenue. I keep saying Lynbarrow Avenue. It's Lynbarrow Abbey. So what has happened most recently is that the soup has decided that we have an opportunity to go visit the accused, the young stable boy who everybody has pinned the murder on. And to do that, we have to sort of step outside the inner boundaries of the Abbey and go to an outbuilding, which makes this the first time Hedwig is stepping outside of the boundary of the Abbey since she was a small child, I believe. Still not 100% of that timeline, but here we go. Nothing else. It's quite beautiful out here. From here I could see that a thick fog encircled the tor the Abbey was built upon, almost as if it was nestled in the eye of a great storm. And once again, if the sound mix is off, just let me know. Ooh. Down the steep hill, I could just barely make out the nearest village. That's not a village, that's a loch or something. The little buildings were situated on the edge of a lake, so large that it disappeared into the mist. We're so far from the village. It's rather strange. Truthfully, what isn't strange around here? True. But even the architecture is not what I would have expected. I had noticed, actually, that the Abbey's buildings don't quite line up with St. Gall's plan. Or the Romanesque plan. Our abbey was built in somewhat curious circumstances, I am told. I would believe it. It was evidently not laid out by a master architect. Do you have any idea why? Because it would have cost a great deal more money to build it properly, I suspect. Money is no object when it comes to houses of worship, surely. The Catholic Church is fucking loaded. That is, sadly, not how it works. Often it falls to a generous benefactor to fund a new community. That is true, though. There would be, like, some wealthy dowager who was like, I think it's time for nuns, and she would decide when an abbey was built or something like that. The great halls of Kirkstall, for example, were paid for by a lord. Bungay Priory was paid for by a countess. Lynborough Tor as well. I'd like to know, to tell you the truth. You don't know who actually funded this place? No. I'm not the first abbess, and hopefully not the last. The history of our community has not been particularly well recorded. I hope you can improve that once we are free of this foul misery. Yeah, she's really expecting Hedwig to stay on as chronicler forever, I guess. But we know that in the future she's back in the hole, so why is she back in the hole? I turned to look at the monastery from a distance. Even from far away I could see that it was fairly dilapidated, oddly situated, and altogether somewhat crooked. Yeah, the tower looks like a chunk has come out of it. How old is it? I'm afraid I don't know that either. Monasteries serve many purposes. Way houses, centres of learning and study, beacons of spiritual guidance for local communities. Lynborough is none of these. I would quite like to see it become one day. Another reason why our mission is of the utmost importance. This place is falling apart, Sister Hedwig. I understand. Welcome to your new home, it sucks. The Superior nodded, and we continued walking to the hospitalum. It's actually quite a way away if you could get that view of the abbey. But then again, it's not built according to plan. It's not up to code. Ah, look at this wee little thing. The hospitalum was an odd little building. It sure is. Look at it. I want to pinch its cheeks. See those little jowly bits there? Yeah. Squeesh. It looked like a piece of the chapel that had been broken off and placed in the middle of a field, with nothing but a beaten path indicating that it was meant to be part of any larger community. I was somewhat relieved that it was not readily visible until we had crested a small hillock during our walk. Ideal home. Yeah! Fuck yeah! I have no concept of the scale of it. Because that door looks like really small there, but maybe it's one of those like medieval doors where like a modern day person has to hunch to get... Ah, it is your dream home then, Jules. Door where you're the only one who can use it. We did not go in through the front door. Instead, the Superior bade me follow. Yeah, the vibe of a really high ceiling. You must be... You can't be this tall. Yeah, except you must be exactly this tall. I love the idea of a very small door leading into a building with an enormous, like, steepled ceiling. Like, with no ceiling between the roof steeple and the room. Like, you just gotta hunch to get in and then you gotta crane up. That's a fun experience. This is some Alice in Wonderland shit. Instead, the Superior bade me follow her around to the back of the building, to a smaller door. I could see a hole where the wall of the building met the ground as we walked past. This really was a haphazardly constructed place. Cave, you're spelunking to get into your house. Watch the stairs. They are quite steep. She produced the same keyring that had taunted me so when I'd heard it in my cell, and it was impossible not to gasp as the door swung open and I saw what lay inside. A stone staircase led down to what looked like a cellar, only there were iron bars splitting the room in half. They have a dungeon at this abbey? They have an outsourced outbuilding dungeon? I jumped as a figure scurried out of the dark corner in this horrible room. He looked panicked, slightly younger than I, to be sure. Jules, these aren't the latex nuns. His clothes were rumpled, and his hair was messy. There was a putrid stench lingering in the room that I did not want to guess the source of. You lived in a small room. You know exactly what that stink is. You are intimately familiar with the stink of shitting in a pot. He might have had a boyish charm under better circumstances, but imprisonment had clearly taken its toll and given him a rat stash. I was struck with a rush of pity when our eyes met. He rushed forward, throwing himself against the bars and gripping them with bloodied fingers. Oh God. He pressed his face between them to bring us closest together as he possibly could. Oh, thank God. Step back, boy, if only a little. I couldn't bend these bars. Believe me, I've tried. Nevertheless, his eyes darted back between the superior's and my own a few times before he relented. He took a step back and breathed deeply. He really was a pathetic sight to behold. Yeah, when we were at Mardi Gras, we saw one of the in Sydney. The Mardi Gras is the Pride Parade, and there was a fetish nun order, and it was like the orders of sister. Yeah, I don't know. It was some BDSM pun. This is Sister Hedwig. She would like to ask you some questions. Questions? What bloody questions could you possibly ask? I think you could, like, Google the participants in the Mardi Gras parade for this year. You'd probably find a list and then just, like, look. Did you kill Sister Catherine? This is a crazy split conversation to be having. We're interrogating a suspect and also trying to remember the name of a troop of kink nuns that we saw in a parade where, we turned our backs every time there was a political float because the fucking conservatives keep showing up and, you know, even our centre-left government doesn't do enough shit. So anyway, we missed seeing the first Prime Minister to walk in the Sydney Gay Lesbian Mardi Gras parade because we were just refusing to look at all politicians. Yeah. Well, whatever, Albo, you need to be humbled. No such thing as an Australian Prime Minister that deserves respect. Anyway, did you kill Sister Catherine? No, I didn't kill no one. He paused for a moment, looking me up and down, and then turned to the superior. That's it? You've held me here for how long? Had me wait in this shithole while you promised to get me help? And you bring me another nun to ask the same goddamn question I've answered over and over? Have you no shame? I am sorry. If you were, I wouldn't be locked up in here. Hedwig, I will wait outside. Conduct your questioning with some haste so we can be back in time for luncheon. What do you want? Okay. I can respect Goff and, Harold Holt, who went for a swim and never came back. I think that's the only time an Australian Prime Minister has died in office. And it wasn't from illness. It wasn't an assassination. It wasn't from being too damn old. It was from going for a fucking swim and not coming back. He's still out there. Did other people die? Yeah, well, he's definitely the only Prime Minister who ever just fucking go. Only Prime Minister to walk into the ocean. Yeah, thanks for all your Googling, I appreciate it. I'm trying to... Because this is a really important scene, but at the same time I have all these questions about the name of the BDSM nuns and how many Prime Ministers have died in office in our stupid country. He was the third to die in office. Okay. Yeah. Because that was like the 60s, right? Because there's a bunch of like black and white footage of him. Like there's footage of him at the beach chilling because he loved to swim. He was a great swimmer. But the ocean is a cruel mistress. And then we named a pool after him. Okay. I'm the face, you're the brain. Is that what we're going with here? Okay. What do you want? I'm the talking brain, and you're the googling brain. Okay. Fuck this right brain, left brain shit. No, we're on input-output functions here. Okay, here we go. I, I, you're sure you did not kill her? You promise? What good is my word? You've already decided. You have no evidence, but neither do I. Well, it would matter to me. The mouth that lies kills the soul, as it is written. Aye, they do. Are you a God-fearing man? As much as anyone around here is. Then, would you promise me you did not kill Catherine? Doesn't matter what promise I could offer. Promise me! The stable boy recoiled in shock. I was surprised myself. I had stamped my foot down so hard it had kicked up dust from the filthy cellar floor, and it lingered in the air for a while as the young man and I stared at each other. I promise. I swear to you, I've never killed nobody, least of all some poor woman. I believe you. Oh, fantastic, and where does that leave us? I have more questions. Of course. Of course you do. Why were you here that night? I made the mail and supply deliveries sometimes, from the village. At night? Not usually, no, I've forgotten something. A letter. I saw it laying in the dirt when I got to the bottom of the hill, and came back first thing next morning to deliver it. What was in the letter? How should I know? I'm not a murderer, I'm not a thief neither. Of course. That was a silly question. Okay. I can respect Goff, and, Harold Holt, who went for a swim and never came back. I think that's the only time an Australian Prime Minister has died in office. And it wasn't from illness. It wasn't an assassination. It wasn't from being too damn old. It was from going for a fucking swim and not coming back. He's still out there. Did other people die? Yeah, well, he's definitely the only Prime Minister who ever just fucking go. Only Prime Minister to walk into the ocean. Yeah, thanks for all your Googling, I appreciate it. I'm trying to... Because this is a really important scene, but at the same time I have all these questions about the name of the BDSM nuns and how many Prime Ministers have died in office in our stupid country. He was the third to die in office. Okay. Yeah. Because that was like the 60s, right? Because there's a bunch of like black and white footage of him. Like there's footage of him at the beach chilling because he loved to swim. He was a great swimmer. But the ocean is a cruel mistress. And then we named a pool after him. Okay. I'm the face, you're the brain. Is that what we're going with here? Okay. What do you want? I'm the talking brain, and you're the googling brain. Okay. Fuck this right brain, left brain shit. No, we're on input-output functions here. We'll decide. The bishop? Yes, he has been informed of the general situation. When he makes his usual visit at the end of the month to deliver the sacrament, he will deal with it, along with any other business. So, no matter what, somebody's going to be handed over to him. Yes, and I want it to be the right person. I will wait outside once more for you two to finish up. Do hurry. This is hopeless. You're no constable. Please, help me to do my best. Tell me the whole story of the morning you were caught. Don't overlook any details. Alright, here we go. Testimony. I should have set up my Ace Attorney like sound effects. Anyway, just imagine it, the witness testimony. Very well. I arrived late with that missing letter, and I noticed that the sister I normally hand them off to wasn't where I would normally find her. Where is that? The library. She did a lot of writing as far as I know. Did you check anywhere else? Well, I didn't want to overstay my welcome, especially at night. I wouldn't dare poke my head into the dorms, but she wasn't in the misery wards at neither. Who did you end up giving the letter to? I don't know everyone's names. I don't know your name, even. It's Hedwig. Sister Hedwig. James Foreman. I wish I could say it was a pleasure. James offered me a grim, humorless smile. I was looking for someone else to give it to for a bit. I don't know the place very well. And you couldn't have just, I don't know, left it on a table somewhere and gone home? Well, that's just it. See, I couldn't. A job halfway done is worse than not done. Oh, my old man always said. Oh man, they had hustle culture even in the 15th century. Hedwig, you lived in a hole and did nothing but work, okay? It's very astute. Allow me a little dignity, thank you kindly, ma'am. I was looking around for someone to ask for help when someone grabbed me and said they caught me. I know you don't know anyone's name, but who? Can you describe her? Well, she was stern, I suppose. Beaky, if you excuse me saying. Angela. I was thinking Angela too. It was either Angela or Darcy, but if it was Darcy, it would have been a lot funnier. He would have, he would have known it was a joke. Yeah, yes, I think I remember one of the others calling her that. I saw quite a blur after that, if I'm being honest. I was scared out of my wits as soon as she nabbed me. What about the blood on your tunic? Blood? What blood? Your tunic was bloodied. That was one of the first things I was told. I left my tunic in the cart. I was only here to deliver a letter. Explain. I hadn't worn my tunic since the day prior. I swear to you, I wasn't wearing no tunic when Angela grabbed me by a ear. We stared at each other in silence for a moment. So he was like, were you hanging around a convent shirtless, my boy? I wanted to believe him, but that required believing that there was a much deeper conspiracy at work than I could have imagined. We were both so still that I could hear the wood above us creaking and bending. It was almost as if the building itself was breathing. Finally, the silence was broken by the door atop the stairs opening. Are you satisfied? We should go back soon. We cannot miss luncheon. Have you seen it? Have you seen my tunic? What is he talking about? His tunic, the one covered in blood. He says he wasn't wearing it the morning he was found. Impossible. I saw the thing myself. It's ghastly. I swear I wasn't wearing it. It's true, damn you. Someone is lying. I have seen it. It is indeed bloodied, and I can have Eustace pull it out of storage to show you. However, I'm being betrayed. Set up. Anyone could have gone to my cart and taken it. You were only there for a short while, no? Did you pass anyone on your way from the cart to the library? No, I didn't. Then it's just your word against a bloody tunic. I must say, it's not very convincing. You said you believe me. And I do. But I am not the one who needs convincing, unfortunately. What? I hear those keys jingling. Just let me go. You'll never hear from me again. I'll run away, find another job somewhere. You will do no such thing. Curse both of you then. Some help you are. Is there anyone you know here who you think might have had it out for you? I just can't imagine anyone doing such a horrible thing. No. No? No. Well, that will have to do for now. I hope you learned something useful, Hedwig. For all our sakes. Wait! There's one more thing that may help my cause. Someone can vouch for my not wearing the tunic that morning. Who? Sister Catherine. The other one. I thought you didn't pass anyone on the way in. She was in the library when I went up there to find Catherine. The other Catherine. God rest her. Well, it is certainly not much, but it might be a start. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Has word been sent back down in the village about why I'm gone? Yes. Oh, that's good, I suppose. And have you had any word back? I have not. Oh, shame that. He looked utterly defeated, so much so that I could not bear looking at him any longer. A small part of me wanted to wrench the keys from Mother Superior's hand and free the wretch myself. Ma'am, you had me promise you I was telling you the truth, and I did. Will you promise to find whoever did this to me? I can't promise that. I can't promise what I don't know is possible. Do you promise to try? Please? Yes. I promise I will do my utmost. We bowed to the poor young man and headed back up the precarious staircase to the outside world. I dared not turn around to see his expression as we left. I could not bear it. The Superior and I didn't speak on the walk back to the Abbey. I was torn between feeling curious about the wide world I had stepped into and worrying that someone in the stone buildings ahead of us was watching. I half expected an arrow to come sailing over the wall and strike me dead in the chest. However, almost as soon as this gory image crossed my mind, the fog between us and the monastery thickened. I found this comforting, as if I was, perhaps, being watched over by God on my righteous quest. How very silly of me. The thought carried me for a little while, though. Poor bastard. I bet he just had blood on his tunic from, like a horse problem. Like, he mentioned putting down lame horses as, like, a concept. Maybe he had a butcher incident. Alright, Darcy time. Let's go. Let's get ready for the Alcovisionist. The Superior is violating the Geneva Convention. I went quiet. You can't hear me? Am I audible? I'm making noises. You can't hear me? Can you hear the game? Okay, yeah. Can you hear the game and me? This is a big wind-up for me to practice my Darcy voice. Okay, good. Okay. So, probably on Jules' end then. Thank you. You're all good, Jules. I appreciate it, though. I am really bad with audio, so when anything happens like that, you let me know. And even if it is just on your end. Okay. Lunch is going to be late today. I see. What happened? Well, a cat happened to think. After a brisk walk through the grounds, the Superior and I had approached the rectory. According to her, we had made perfect time. However, the rectory hall was empty when we arrived. Now Darcy was explaining to an increasingly bewildered Superior that Lynbarrow had yet another mystery within its walls. A cat. I was rushing to Jack when I heard some rustling, and then some pots fell over behind me. Oh dear. Could have been a ghost, and I was wondering if it was a ghost at first, but then I heard meowing. She's probably cat. That is a relief, at least. Could be both. Anyway, while I was picking up the pots, I tried to sneak to eat the duck because I heard a yell and then it ran out the door. Poor thing. Probably singed its whiskers. It's a disgusting little creature, and I won't have it bringing the plague in here. I'm not taking any chances. I'm making a new lunch, that's why to be late. Good. Is someone looking for the vermin? You've seen this exact picture while hunting down non-copyright old-timey kitchen pictures. It is such a beautifully classic old-timey kitchen picture. If I saw this on Shutterstock, I would also want to use it. I know, we're running into some medieval cat attitudes here, I'm afraid. Yes, yes. Godspeed to her. Is everyone else informed of the delay? Nearly everyone was milling about outside the rectory ready for lunch, so I had to disappoint them. I think Adela and Maud are still in the cellars. And I suppose Moira was on her way to bell duty. Well, it seems like everything is in order. I look forward to the meal. She nodded at Darcy, who didn't seem to be paying her any attention, and then ducked out of the kitchen. Yes, soup, everything in order. That's why someone died. Jesus Christ, Darcy! Oh dear. I'm so sorry. You're alright, my friend. I just wish you wouldn't pretend nothing is hanging over us all at the moment. I understand. Well, what can you do? Some people are just detached from it all. Do you need any help cooking? Having an order, but thank you for the offer. You already big help with the carrots this morning. I gave Darcy a little bow and stepped out of the kitchen. Fucking love carrots. And Darcy. That's Flora! I heard the bell, but there's no food. Oh, there was an incident in the kitchen, so things are going to be late today. No, I know, but the bell just rang, so... Hello, you two ready for lunch? No, actually, it's going to be late today, apparently. Oh no, and I already rang the... Yes. Whoopsie daisy, I've been so busy today. Me too. Oh really? What have you been up to? Well, after service this morning, I felt tired, so I took a nap. Flora's a real one. 24/7 sleep cycle. If you awake, you are fake. Oh no. Were you up late again last night?
What do you mean, again?
Oh, come now, I know you.
Don't listen to her, she's crazy.
Moira laughed and pulled Flora into a one-armed hug, which Flora seemed to appreciate very little. Oh, they're so cute. Given that we had both seen Flora emerge from the Misericorde last night, it seemed that Moira was entirely correct, although I was determined not to take sides. Have either of you seen a cat? Supposedly that's the villain responsible for the lunch delay.
A cat? Would we even need one? I've never seen a mouse here.
Darcy said one got into the kitchen and was knocking things around. Got too close to the fire, poor little creature.
It's just a cat.
Do you like cats, Hedwig? Well, I don't know, really. I imagine they're quite sweet. This is the saddest thing ever. She had to imagine cats. She's never experienced a cat. Get this woman a kitty immediately. Oh, of course. Silly me, always forgetting.
You've never seen a cat.
I suppose she wouldn't ever had one in herself. Rotating a cat in her mind. I love that black and white cat, that low poly image that people are always like just sending around on Tumblr, the rotating cat. Love that guy. It's a good face in that cat.
Oh, right. Well, they're a bit creepy, I think. I wouldn't know.
The devil plays with the sinner like the cat does with a mouse, after all. Come to think of it, are there any cats in the Bible? Only one, actually, mentioned offhand in the letter of Jeremiah as a part of Baruch.
Huh?
Goodness, you really are a scholar.
Hold on. What about lions?
What about them?
Never mind.
I flushed red. It was deeply embarrassing to be bested this way, and especially by Flora. 19-year-old fucking dunks on you in a cat trivia contest because you forgot that lions were part of the Felis taxes. I wasn't even sure she'd actually read the Bible. Come on! She's a 19-year-old nun. There's not much else to do. She has the Bible read at her at the very least. Well, it just goes to show all of us have places we could brush up on in our understanding of scripture. Indeed. I smiled weakly at the pair of them and took my leave. I was feeling quite strained after the morning's stressful events, and I wasn't sure how much more social interaction I could handle before eating. So true, bestie. I was angrier than I should have been about Flora's observation about lions. Angry at her or myself, I wasn't quite sure. Either way, I certainly did not feel up to the task of playing Inquisitor with Catherine. I decided to go for a stroll around the paths between the rectory and the garden. She got put in the autism box, that's why. I had been surprised by Darcy's shocking outburst, relatively at least, as soon as the Superior had been out of earshot, but I was now finding myself agreeing with her. In total, the events of the past 2 days, day and a half really, had been unlike anything I could have possibly imagined while whittling away the hours in my cell. Do you find it mad too? I've seen a ghost or a devil in front of my very eyes the night before. Yet here I was, wandering around the Abbey grounds, overwhelmed by the prospect of talking to any more human beings for a little while. That's the realest thing ever, though. You go through some insane, crazy trauma shit, some shit you can't even, articulate, and then it's like, oh, can you go to the shops and buy some food? And it's like, no, I cannot. I cannot look a cashier in the eye. Thank you. The others had not believed me when I told them about the monstrous apparition, and it was that doubt, I think, that might have kept me from unraveling completely. At that moment, the most terrifying prospect in front of me was sharing a meal in a room with someone who, potentially, had stolen a man's tunic to cover up a vicious murder. But then, surely all of that paled in comparison to what I had seen the night prior. An impossible creature threatening me with its blade before disappearing without a trace. If I held either of these scenarios in my head for too long, the grim tangibility of Sister Catherine's murder, or the possibility that I had seen some kind of devil with my own eyes, I felt faint. No, I felt worse than faint. I felt like St. Vincent on the rack, Jesus, having to choose exactly which end of myself I'd prefer to have burned, one thought at a time. so tough to, eat around people. Me, like, hardly finishing my enormous muffin before starting the stream because I didn't want to make mouth noises into the mic. Are you writing any of this down, by the way? I'm recording it, actually. Not that I'd mind if you did. She might not approve, though. I hear she holds quite fast to her rules, despite all appearances. Okay. Are we talking... So, this is Hedwig talking 1 year from now in the framing device. Sounds like there's a new superior, or she's at a new abbey. Anyway, while wandering, I found myself at the door to the chapel. I felt compelled to enter. What better place to collect myself? If anything could ease my mind at this point, it would be a moment's prayer. With some difficulty, I swung open the heavy door. I strolled through the aisle, taking... I just had the craziest thought. What if in the future the new Mother Superior is Catherine, dead Catherine, but she faked her death somehow? I don't know, I'm just stuck on the fact that in her inscription, I think she was talking about herself as Catherine, Sister Catherine I of a different abbey. Yeah, Catherine-is-alive, truthers. Let's go! This murder is too upsetting! It doesn't exist. I strolled through the aisle, taking a moment to gaze up at the high ceiling. To feel at peace for just a moment. We have got to stop meeting like this. Ah! Sorry. It can be a little shadowy in here. That's quite alright. I'm just learning that I'm easily startled since leaving my cell. I am a very easily startled person myself. You could absolutely Five Nights at Freddy's me very easily. Like, that's my name for a reason, I guess. But it was my name before that game came out, but I'm incredibly jump scareable. Jules. Yeah. What was that, like, 47 messages you sent me the other night about Spurk? Never mind. I am incredibly jump scareable. I could be looking at someone and they will move and I will be like, oh yeah! Nobody could blame me for that. That's 47 of them. It was impressive. Nobody could blame me for that. How are you adjusting today? Did you start writing? I did, as a matter of fact. Lovely. Eustace wasn't too hard on you? No. Liar. That's good. I'll sure you end up looking horns eventually, so be ready. Really? Eustace seems so quiet, generally. She is, but it's very easy to rile her up. Especially if you disagree with her about something. She and Catherine used to bicker a lot, I take it? Oh, endlessly. Especially about chronicling. Margaret extended a hand to the pew nearest to us. Care to sit? Oh, of course. We sat down together. Margaret gazed at the pulpit briefly, before continuing. Eustace is very intelligent, and Catherine was too. And intelligent people sometimes enjoy having a go at each other for sport. I could be internationally ranked in that kind of sport. I did play sport in high school, apparently. It's how they show affection. What on earth would Catherine write that would... What on earth would Catherine write that would irritate Eustace so much? I didn't read much of her chronicling, to tell you the truth. I don't think anyone here does. The job is really about writing something down for people to argue about years later. I suppose if we're living here, reading about it wouldn't be very interesting. Catherine had the same thought. She wrote about all kinds of things. I am meant to do that as well, I think. The letters. Yes, those were her sticking point. I think you meant to just copy them word for word to mark time, but Catherine would go quite deep on some of them. There was one instance a couple of years ago. This music, coupled with, like, Margaret's flat affect, it's like having a soothing effect on me. I'm like ASMRing myself. Actually, no. I thought of a better one. Have you ever heard of Rheims Cathedral? No, actually. It's a very big cathedral in France. One of the biggest, in fact. It's quite grand. Anyway, it was damaged in a great fire, and Catherine was meant to write that down. Instead, she demanded to write a letter to the municipality over the smallest detail. There was a note in the letter about how the King of France had granted the city an octroi, and the funds for the repairs were coming from a tax on salt. What? This was more or less what everyone said. Catherine was furious, though. What on earth for? Well, certainly I think none of us would have noticed, but she had a point. France taxes salt very heavily, and Catherine thought it was highly unfair that the building was to be going to be repaired with money she said was being stolen from the poor. I must admit, this is completely beyond my understanding. They killed her to prevent the invention of socialism. Catherine Marx coming through. Everyone needs salt, and everyone in France is taxed on it equally. It's how you make food survive the winter, for one thing, but it's an incredibly useful and valuable thing. I dread to think how much we spend on salt here, to tell you the truth, but mercifully we don't have to pay quite the same way the French do. It just seems like a petty thing to pick at. The building needed repairing. Yes, but Catherine was beside herself for days. Marxist Catherinists. I remember her stalking around the halls, muttering to herself in very poor French, "Adieu diable," which was meant to be "damn your spires," or some such. Eustace forbade her to write it in a letter to the diocese on the subject. She was going to tell the diocese, "damn your spires." Margaret threw her head back and laughed, clearly enjoying a fond memory. The diocese? No, she was demanding to send a letter to the king. My goodness! Catherine sulked for days after Eustace told her off for that one. All over a building. It isn't about the building, it's about the very soul of the church, is what Catherine would tell you. She really found it distasteful that the repairs had been built at the expense of the people's basic needs, and wanted to make that known to anyone she could with the say in the matter. It wasn't the only time she got herself worked up over a building, either. She heard about the last remaining ruins of the lighthouse of Alexandria being paved over to build a way for it, and she spent a whole week badgering a dealer asking if she knew enough Arabic to help her write a letter of complaint to the Sultan. Catherine is so cool! I can understand her position, just it seems so fruitless. It sounds rather cruel to put it that way, but... Margaret grinned and shifted in her seat to face me. That's the essence of most of the arguments Catherine got into around here. You're not wrong, but... and so on. It sounds quite exhausting. I suddenly felt my stomach drop. Not to speak any ill of her, I mean... Margaret laughed again. You're fine. People said far worse of her while she lived. Angela once accused her of writing her own 12 conclusions. I find it rather touching that she can still put people in awkward positions like this. Her influence reaches beyond the grave. Beyond the grave? Do you believe in ghosts? Spirits? That's quite a question. I apologize if it's touch strange to ask. Just... you're not the first person who has mentioned feeling Catherine's presence lingering to me, or wished aloud for it. It's not a problem. But I should warn you that if this is an extension of your practical joke, the others are going to find bringing Catherine into the proceedings very distasteful. Would you believe me if I insisted that there was no prank? I would be curious to know what other explanation you could give. If you really saw what you claim to see, why are you still here? Why didn't you start running and only stop when you reached the next village over? I'm still mulling over the idea of running, to tell you the truth. But I don't think I could. That's interesting. Believe it or not, that makes me slightly more inclined to accept your story. Really? Very slightly. I have no explanation for what I saw, only that I saw it. A real monster, menacing me with a wicked blade. It sounds absolutely chilling. The thing is, if I ran, where would I go? 2 days ago, I hadn't been outside of my little room. I felt like if I left... you'd be experiencing the same confusion 10 times over. Yes, that's a good way to put it. The devil you know. I understand the feeling. But you don't believe I actually saw anything. You don't accept the existence of ghosts at all, evil spirits and the like. I was practically begging for reassurance at this point. I wouldn't say that. I saw something once in the cellar, late at night. A little devil with bulbous eyes and malformed teeth. In the cellars. But don't you sneak down there to raid the pantry some nights? Well, as I said, the devil you know. And sometimes I get quite hungry. You're pulling my leg, aren't you? Now, why would I do something like that? Oh, that's adorable. Oh my god. Oh. Finally, Margaret stood up and stretched her arms above her head. I think that's enough of that seat for now. Luncheon will still be a bit, correct? Let's go for a walk, you and me. Yay, more Margaret! More Margaret, yay! We're going to get interrupted, aren't we? Certainly. She walked briskly out of the chapel. I was too slow to help her with the large wooden doors, but she managed quite well enough on her own. I love the way she's written. She ushered me past and then took a step ahead as the door closed. Margaret wanted to lead me somewhere, and I could not guess where. To tell you the truth, I've always had mixed opinions about the existence of ghosts. I've seen so many things that end up being tricks of the light, figures in the fog, that sort of thing. For years, the knocking and scraping in the walls here kept me up at night. But these buildings are very old. They're not particularly well built. That's the sort of thing I like to try and comfort myself with as well. But it's a bit different when you're all alone at night, isn't it? Yes. So you do believe me? Perhaps I do. Perhaps I don't. But either way, there's something I'd like to show you. We were walking up the stairs to the second floor. Hold on. We're going to need a candle for this. She jogged into the dormitories and after a moment emerged with a lit candle and a pricket. Come with me. She took me down the hall, towards the intersection where I had seen the sword-wielding spectre. There's no blood or anything here. We already looked. We're going a bit further than that. My heart jumped into my throat. Are we going down the hall to my cell? Just about. We walked together quietly for just a little while. This hall always made me feel uncomfortable. For a moment I felt affronted that Margaret would even dare talk about what this hall might make her feel in my presence, but I suppressed the urge to chastise her. Nonetheless, walking down this hallway felt more precarious than my first encounter with the stairs. I take it you didn't come to the hagioscope very often, then? Not for your advice, I'm afraid. We arrived at my cell. Margaret handed me the candle and began rapping her knuckles against the stone wall. Eventually, she found whatever she was looking for. She inserted her fingers between two of the old stones and pulled. To my shock, the wall swung open to reveal a passageway wide enough, just about, for one person. What? There's passageways all over this place. That isn't what I wanted to show you, though. Follow me. This is great. There's like secret passageways in this place. This just like obliterated the case. She took the candle back and entered the narrow tunnel. I followed her nervously. Most abbeys have passages like this because there needs to be some space between the walls, see? It's an architectural thing. I think it helps the air as well. That's what my father used to say anyway. Ooh, Margaret lore? Margaret lore? So this passageway isn't in and of itself particularly interesting. However, we kept walking until we finally came to a corner. Here we are. She took a few steps around the bend and beckoned me to join her. Like I was saying before, I've always been non-committal about things like luck and ghosts and curses and so on. But this always bothered me. And there have been too many things happening lately for me to discount it entirely. Parts of the abbey falling down, Catherine's death, and now your ghost. By this, you mean... Come closer. She held the candle out in front of her to better illuminate what she was referring to. I try not to take this passage anymore, because this makes me nervous. I gasped when I realized what she was looking at. One of the bricks lining the passageway had a detestable shape etched into it. Someone's doing witchcraft here, huh? I did not know what it was, but it filled me with enough dread just to look at it that I knew it was wrong. Evil. My stomach churned as I remembered the Superior's words to me about the provenance of the Abbey. Was the construction of this place really so mysterious? I was so excited to hear. How could something like this have been allowed to make it into the very walls of the building? The work of some possessed builder, no doubt. A house of God built with no oversight and ill intent. I speak of it eloquently now, of course. However, in the moment, all that I could muster, was something far less considered. Oh my God! Margaret grinned wickedly. Steady on. What was it you told me about cursing? I didn't speak a word the whole walk back to the chapel. I was deeply disturbed. I didn't know what that horrible symbol meant, and I didn't want to. One look at it was enough to tell me that something dark was at work within the walls, something I did not want to meddle with under any circumstances. We arrived at the chapel doors, and Margaret turned to me. Cheer up. It's a bit grim, but I've lived with it for ages. I try not to muck about the unknown, and it doesn't muck about with me. Much, anyway. All that being said, I think I might take credit for the prank if I were you. Even if it wasn't you. Why would I do a thing like that? I don't know. It just seems like something you'd want people to think you were capable of. You've got to keep people guessing, yeah? You've got to make a name for yourself. I think I'll stick to being the chronicler. Oh, right, yes. I forgot to mention it, but I'm sure you'll do great work at all that. You ask good questions. It might annoy Eustace, but I think that's critical for the job. I'm afraid most of my words since leaving the cell have been questions. And I'm afraid I don't quite have the same verve that Catherine seems to have had. There's no need to worry about it. Don't write like Catherine. Write like Hedwig. I bowed my head, attempting to hide my flushed cheeks. My starved pride had allowed this sliver of a compliment to rush to my head. I didn't feel too chuffed for too long, though, because... Ah! The chapel bell had just begun to ring above us, scaring me out of my wits. I must have jumped several feet into the air out of shock. Margaret was grinning ear to ear when I came down to earth. I clutched my chest instinctively, doubled over, and tried to regain my composure. Sorry, the superior told me to ring and ring the bell for luncheon. I didn't see you two there. I could hear a voice calling out to us from above, like some apologetic angel. Margaret called up in response, apparently unfazed. That's all right. How on earth did we miss you? I came in through the back door as the superior never locks it. Yeah. I really am so sorry, Hedwig. I didn't mean to give you such a scare. That's quite all right, Moira. Okay, superior never locks the back door of the chapel. And Margaret's always fucking in some place she shouldn't be. I want to see Margaret and Darcy interact so bad. Ooh. Dream blunt rotation. Luncheon passed without much incident. Now that I was no longer expected to sit through extended introductions of myself and others, I could enjoy my food in relative peace. Darcy's cooking was excellent and much appreciated, although I was beginning to realize that the emotional reservoir that eating refilled was shrinking with each passing meal. Part of this, perhaps, was the worried anticipation that someone might casually mention seeing the superior and I walking back from the hospitalum earlier. The amount of secrets I was responsible for already felt unsustainable, but the idea of those secrets coming to light was even worse. I participated in the conversation around the table superficially, just enough to avoid being asked if something was wrong. I was unsure I'd be able to lie and say no. The Bible, of course, has plenty to say about lying. The Bible says a lot of things. Bearing false witness breaks the commandment. Although in my time locked in a cell, I had read many musings from scholars smarter than I about whether or not that meant all untruths, or if the commandment was speaking strictly about matters of court. I've told you my views on loose interpretation, but the Bible is inerrant. There is no getting around the fact that the midwives lying to the Pharaoh's men saved many lives, for example. Still, it was difficult to feel like I was acting as selflessly as they did. I felt closer to Augustine than Cassian. After luncheon, we all filed out of the rectory to return to our duties. Eustace made a beeline to the stairs up to the library, and even though we had made up after this morning's spat, I felt inclined to keep away from her a little bit longer. Catherine slipped out of the rectory before I could ask her about James's story. I must admit I was relieved to once again have an excuse to avoid that conversation. Yeah, God. Like, I avoid conversations with people that I like about subjects that I enjoy. I cannot imagine having on my to-do list confront someone I barely know about their role in covering up a murder. Nuh-uh. Uh-uh. I was more interested in the symbol Margaret had shown me, which I feared indicated something far more sinister than I or the Superior were prepared for. Margaret seemed wholly unperturbed throughout her meal. How? I could not understand it. She has a legendary poker face. Just thinking about that twisted shape made me sweat. It had been so close to my cell. How had I never felt it? Had it woven some dark spell on me, and I just hadn't noticed? Was it responsible for who I was? What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? What are you asking? What? Huh? Huh? What happened to you, Hedwig? What do you think is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Man, did anybody else have that, like, desire when they were, like, I don't know, like a young teenager is probably when it was the strongest, where, like, you wanted to find, like, the thing that would unlock the reason why you're the way you are, the way you are? Like, you wanted to find, like, the MacGuffin that explained all your problems. Yeah. Yay, diagnostic criteria. Lamb sauce located. The mistakes I continued to make. The concessions I made without verbal complaint to fit in with these women. The lack of a fight I had put up to the Superior as she broke the seal in my cell. Was that thing responsible? These thoughts ran rings in my head until I too felt as if I had been sprinting in circles for too long. I did my best to shut them out, and decided instead to wander down to the cellars, somewhat hopeful that it would keep me out of sight of the afternoon. After all, the cool air of the cellars would perhaps clear my head. A very old trap indeed, Jules. Oh, Hedwig, would you be so kind as to settle an argument between myself and Marta? I had chosen poorly. Argument? Try this. Ah! Is it supposed to smell like that? Not you too. It does smell absolutely rank, Adela. Adela was holding a stinking label over an open cask, waving it in between our faces with a great deal of indignation. Oh, it's the sherry. As I told you yesterday, Sister Marta, it smells like this temporarily. It gives the wine its flavor, and you can already taste it in this barrel. Go on. Must I? Better you than I. I'm afraid I might keel over if I inhale much more of this miasma. With trepidation, I took the ladle from Adela's hand and held it up to my lips. The half-finished wine smelled truly foul, enough to make me cough. However, Adela was glaring at me with such determination that I was ever so slightly more afraid of her than the liquid. Closing my eyes, I braved the taste. It was actually not that bad. It was nowhere near as disgusting as the smell. However, it was clearly not meant for drinking yet, and whatever sweetness I could detect on my tongue was soon covered up by a watery and weak fruit flavor, which was all too soon replaced by the overpowering stench of the ladle and barrel. It's coming together. Unbelievable. See? Even half fermented, the power sherry holds is undeniable. How long will it take to come into its own? It takes several years to properly ferment. This batch is quite young. It only started when I first arrived. I have been dragging Sister Marta into the future. Thank God this isn't the only wine I have to work with. You have to help. Surely you are not rotating all the casks throughout the celera yourself. Of course not. What's the celera? All of these barrels, they have to move. You bottle some of the oldest wine from the bottom cask, and then refill with some of the youngest, and then rotate that back to the top. It keeps the quality consistent, and it means that some of the oldest batch is in every bottle. She took a moment to spoon the ladle into the liquid and tried to sip herself. She smacked her lips and looked thoughtful. That sounds arduous. Too right. Helps to have some unruly younger sisters around to threaten with manual labor. I am always happy to help with winemaking. Believe me, I know you are. So does Darcy grow grapes too, or is she just fucked up on other shit? Oh no, I use some fruits from the garden to flavor the other wines, but the grapes are from the village. The slope with the Tor is good for vineyards, but it gets too cold up here around the Abbey proper. They only recently finished the last harvest and brought it to us, hence the celera. There's certainly an awful lot of work to do around here. It sounds like... Thank you for saying so. Some people just don't appreciate how complicated our work can be. Speaking of, I should really tend to my next task. Sister Hedwig, would you walk with me? I bowed my head to Marta, who responded in kind, though she was preoccupied with sealing up the test cask. I don't know much about winemaking. I grew up in Melbourne with a very particular kind of parents, so I got dragged to vineyards a lot, but most of that was just like running around vines while my parents did wine tastings, so I didn't learn as much as I could about what seems like a really genuinely interesting chemical process to me. Adela walked me back through the rows of wine barrows and up the stairs, striding with purpose. Well, it's my specific parents. There's a wine fridge in my house. I don't drink though, so I think there's like, yeah, I just have like some cheap white wine I use for cooking in it now. I struggled to keep up as she crested the staircase into the halls around the cloister. Sister Hedwig, how are you finding Grasmere Abbey? Wait, that's the abbey that Catherine 1 said she was from, but we are in Lindbauer Abbey. Can you explain? Well, I'm not used to it yet, obviously. Yes, it is obvious. I hope you do not mind me saying. Not at all. I am also new here, and I can tell that you are suffering in the same ways that I suffered. Oh, was I? Was I suffering the same way as Adela? I nearly blurted that out, but managed to restrain myself. You are anxious. You're confused. You're eager to please everyone you meet. I was the same way for a while, but you must not be afraid to stand your ground when you feel you must. I don't know what you mean. You are doing it right now, Sister Hedwig. You know exactly what I mean, because I'm describing you as you are acting for me as we speak. What is this about, Adela? Have I offended you? Only my sense of justice? I want what is best for you, Sister Hedwig. I want to see you thrive. Do not retreat into your shell like Sister Flora does. She has an excuse. She is not yet 20. But you are nearly 30, are you not? Grow the fuck up. Grow a backbone, Hedwig. Tell me, Sister Hedwig, was the sherry really so bad? It was quite disgusting. Of course it was! Sister Marta is going to ruin all of it before it is due. But surely it couldn't be anything but foul midway through the aging process. I'm no expert, but I thought wine took time. It would taste strange no matter what, but the taste I had after you, it was all wrong. I have worked on many wines, and have learned how to taste how wine is going to taste. And that sherry, it is not coming together as you described. It was more of a guess. It was a lie! A polite one, but untrue all the same. I'm sorry, but shouldn't you be telling Marta, not me? Oh, I will be marching back to Marta in just a moment. Believe me, Sister Hedwig. But I want to help you as well. Never be afraid to speak your mind. The others will respect that much more than endless acquiescence. I find that hard to believe. See, you're already catching on. No, I'm not practicing, I just don't understand. I don't want to fight everyone. Who said anything about fighting? I'm not saying you should be contrary. I am saying you should not pretend to be someone you are not. Be Hedwig! You are not the first person to tell me this today, believe it or not. All the more reason to take me seriously. Please. I have been in your position before. I have felt lost and overlooked. But I became much happier when I stopped trying to please everyone. I had no way to explain to Adela that beyond being thrust into an entirely new world of social interaction, I was also trying my best to ingratiate myself to everyone for a reason. Butting heads with Sister Angela was more than enough conflict for me, and given that I was here to unmask a murderer, I felt like drawing too much attention to myself was unwise. Being the newcomer had surely made me visible enough without tempting fate. But there was more to it than that. Quite simply, I had no idea who Hedwig was. Yeah, me neither! Who are you? Let me learn about you. Become unto yourself. Honestly, I kind of agree with Adela. You gotta put your foot down more. You're just here to unmask. Have more meltdowns in public, Hedwig. Throw up on more Bibles. Be more off-putting. Be vocal about how much you hate everything that is happening to you all the time. Because people can tell anyway. You may as well own it. If you're having a meltdown in public, have the whole meltdown. Don't be shy. Anyway, I have other business to attend to, and then I will be giving Sister Martha a piece of my mind. And then, by supper, we will be friends again. This is how things work. You must be strong. I will try. See that you do. I am on your side, Sister Hedwig. Adela gave me a surprisingly firm pat on the shoulder and left. I stood in the corner we had been conversing in for a short while. I'd found Adela's penchant for romantic language somewhat charming up until now, but I did not appreciate these treacly platitudes. I don't know, maybe it's the voice I'm doing, but I feel like she was, like, giving that her all. It struck me, yeah, I can see why you would be, like, defensive about getting that kind of speech, but to me it really sounded like someone who had struggled a lot with interacting with people and making a personality for herself, trying to help someone else. I was bouncing between embarrassment and fury. Yeah, that makes sense. But you should own that. You should express that. Go, yell at her. She'd love it if you yelled at her. I needed a moment to myself. I was not yet ready. It was not yet even close to supper time. Yeah, you only just finished lunch. The days here, it seemed, would be excruciatingly long until I settled into a routine. Days can just keep going, my friend. Sometimes a day will last for fucking ever. As I calmed down, I thought about where I should go next. I had already bothered Eustace enough for one day. I didn't want Darcy to get sick of me. Oh, but I want to see more Darcy. And I had just left the cellars. Moreover, I hadn't a clue where anyone would actually be at this time of day. Margaret, Catherine, Moira. Anyone, really. I yearned for the comfort of my cell. Sisters yearn for the mines. At least there, my tasks had been clear as crystal. Around this time, I'd usually be settling in to copy down some Bible pages after reflecting on some scripture. It was almost automatic. I mean, you could probably go do that now and everyone would be like, yeah, cool, Bible. Perhaps why I'd while away the evening. Oh shit. That's the fire alarm. It's broken, it does this occasionally, I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry, yeah, I have a really sensitive fire alarm. I had a fire in my house in 2022. That's still last year. Beginning of last year. So I have a bit of a strong reaction to my fire alarm. And even though I know it's broken and it false alarms all the time, and all I need to do is hit it with a big stick. And I do that, and it's fine. My heart rate just really goes up, so I'm just going to catch my breath for a little while. But everything's fine. I don't even know if the sound of the fire alarm picked up on my mic. Yeah, there's a button on the fire alarm, and you need like a broom pole, and you use the broom pole up, and you press the big button, and the button stops it. You couldn't hear it? Okay, cool. So I'm sorry then if that was very strange, me just suddenly getting up and bolting. But that's what that was. I'm just gonna take a drink. Okay. There we go. I'm fine. Let's get back to the game. Perhaps I'd while away the evening illuminating a page in gold leaf. With a start, I remembered the last page I'd transcribed before leaving the cell. The book I'd thrown out the window. Surely it'd be weathered by the elements by now, but I felt a strong urge to go and reclaim the half-finished tome. If nothing else, it would be a comforting reminder of the last time I'd had a clear sense of purpose. It wasn't a terribly long walk to the side of the building my old cell window had faced. There were no paths on that side of the building, however. The terrain was uneven, and the grass quite tall. Yeah, you're on one of those rocky English hills. I feel like there's going to be a lot of pebbles that she's skidding on. I have a very vivid image, because we watched the opening again. It was strange seeing the buildings from this side. In the courtyards and cloister, everything looked flat and mathematical, but here the earth rose and fell like waves around the stone. There was an immense forest not far from the abbey on this end, and my heart leapt into my throat as I remembered the mysterious figure I had seen standing not far from where I was searching now. I recognized my window high up on the wall. There actually weren't many openings on this side of the building. Most of the glass windows faced inward, towards the cloister. The book was not here. A chill ran up my back. I had seen it the morning after my tantrum, clear as day. Was I truly going mad? Had I hallucinated a book before the ghost and goat? I scanned the tall grass around me. Someone just picked it up, Hedwig. It's gone because it's a Bible outside of an abbey, and someone was like, that's not supposed to be on the dirt. Maybe it had slid down the hill, or bounced in a fashion I had not noticed. Perhaps I was simply looking at the wrong spot. Try as I might, I could not find it. Unless it had been swallowed by the earth, the book had been moved. Who in their right mind would want a half-finished Bible soaked by rain and tainted with my own bile, no less? I don't know, I feel like people on Etsy would be like, hey, who wants a buffed-on Bible? Then my foot slipped. What's black and white and red all over? A nun falling down a hill. It's a joke from my uncle. I rolled down the hill with a yelp. I tumbled so... It's such a crystal clear image of her in a black and white habit, just like whoop, 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 whoop. Some Looney Tunes shit. I tumbled several times, legs over head, end over end. Don't laugh. It was quite terrifying. Oh, I used to love rolling down hills as a kid. You get a really good hill and then you just roll down it. But sometimes you would get your angle wrong and you'd like start rolling down and then you roll off to the side. And whoever you had like tried to race, it was always my brother, would like careen past you and be so mad. It's like, I rolled wrong. What if I had broken a bone or fallen into some inescapable hole? You've already been in an inescapable hole, my queen. Oh fuck, that is a significant... That's like a cliff. That's not a fun hill. I came to rest against a small tree. I scrambled to my feet, using the trunk for leverage. I spat a little grass out of my mouth and groaned as I realized my habit was covered in dirt and grass stains. What a mess. Yes, in Princess Bride! She just goes straight after him. It was then that I saw something highly curious. A piece of fabric was dangling from a branch on the tree I was leaning against. It was a small strip of black cloth. I carefully detached it from the sharp bit of branch it was snagged on. That would mean the figure I had seen that night outside my window was real. Oh, fuck, wait, hold on. It's Wesley's mask. Dread Pirate Roberts is here. I felt some small amount of relief that I was at the very least not completely mad. But then I doubled back. Could a ghost or demon not take corporeal form? The monster I had seen the night before had certainly been solid. Neither of these ideas was particularly comforting. What's more, I certainly couldn't make any headway on the mystery stranded out here. I stuffed this clue into my white stocking and began to hike myself back up into the hill into the abbey. No, explore the forest! Take a look around! Clues! Oh, those rocks, yeah, smacking into her. I had not fallen that far afield, but it was still quite a steep trek. I decided I would walk around the other way from whence I'd come, just to complete my impromptu tour of outside the abbey. It was actually a little more even and flat the further I ventured around this side, which was a relief. I was able to stick close to the wall. I didn't feel like falling down any more hillocks after that afternoon. Hello, it's Darcy! This is such a fun tune. I jumped. I hadn't noticed a little square window, low on the outside wall of the building, through which I could just barely make out Darcy's face. Goodness! You startled me. Hello, Darcy.
What you doing down there?
Oh, I felt like going for a walk. I hadn't seen the abbey from this side just yet.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Yes, just a whim, I suppose. It's giving me a sense of place, though.
Did you fall over?
Yes, I did.
Oh, no.
Oh, be nice.
No, sure, not trying to be cruel, it's just that we've all done it.
You've all fallen down this side of the hill.
It happens to me all the time when I go hunting for mushrooms and so on.
Oh, I see.
That is rather funny when you fell there. Did you roll?
Yes.
Good, that's how you say stiff.
Really now?
Yes, if you go stiff, you'll break something. Flora did that once.
Oh no.
It's fine, these younger bones are supposed to break. Good for the constitution.
I love Darcy.
You're young, you break your bones.
Well, I'm not sure if they're supposed to, but better to break something young so it can heal.
That's right.
Well, what are you up to? What room are you in?
Oh, it's just a funny little window in one of the halls.
Yeah, like, if you break a bone and it heals wrong in medieval times, it's like, well, fuck. Hope you enjoyed crutches. Yeah. Oh, with falling down the hill, though, you could break several bones, have them all heal wrong, and it's just, yeah. Oof. Oh, I suppose I'm close to the cloister on this end.
That's right, and above the croft.
Fascinating.
Buildings are strange. Anyway, I was just on my way back from picking some bit of vetch for the stores.
Bit of vetch. Now that's some shit from my Dwarf Fortress streams, which I should get back to at some point. I miss the classic version. The Steam version is good, but I miss playing Legends. I miss playing Adventure Mode. I should do that. I should do an Adventure Mode streams sometime. Maybe when we're done with Misericorde, which is a much longer game than I thought it was going to be. Oh, should I be worried about our stockpiles?
Oh, no, but it just never hurts to have around just in case.
That's wise. Well, I should... Wait, was that a Dwarf Fortress joke? Stockpiles? Never mind. Well, I should be getting on. I should quite like to be back within the walls.
Absolutely.
She smiled widely, then disappeared from the window. The rest of the walk back was uneventful. When I finally made it around to the cloister, I let out a weary sigh. My clothes had only just been washed, and I'd already made a mess of them, and the tumble down the hill had left me feeling a little queasy and out of sorts. Bro, as someone who had to, went to school uniforms in a country where everyone has a school uniform, unless you're a weird Montessori kid, every time my mum would wash my uniform, I would be like, okay, putting them on, and she would be like, I just washed that. And I'd be like, I understand. And I would go to school, and I would go to art class, and I would make a paint mistake, and I'd come home, and she'd be like, you wash this. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. It's not going to go right. Because I'm 12 and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You can explain it to me and I'll still get it wrong somehow. It frustrated me too. Like, it wasn't like I was pissing my mum off on purpose. Because I didn't want to be covered in paint. It just happened to me. Yeah, we were all just wearing paint mistakes by the end of the potato sack era. Hedwig? Oh, Catherine, hello. You look like you fell asleep in a field. You alright? Oh, yes, I just took a little fall. Well, at least it was down something grassy and not the stairs. Don't be cruel. I stopped my foot and puffed up at Catherine, who looked bewildered. Excuse me? Would it be funny if I fell down some stairs, huh? Would it be amusing if I broke my neck because I haven't used stairs as often as you? Hedwig, you're being a touch dramatic. Oh, am I? Am I being... I had gulped up a little bit of black bile once more. I felt dizzy. Hedwig? Hedwig! She reached out to stop me from collapsing. Oh dear, overstimulated again today. I gurgled something out into her jaw. Poor Hedwig. Catherine hoisted me to my feet and began to lead me towards the stairs. Her nose wrinkled. We need to get Moira to take a look at you again, I think. That doesn't seem normal. It's perfectly normal for me. As I half-heartedly walked with Catherine up the stairs, she declined to crack a joke this time. I reasoned that my propensity for spilling black bile all over the place was just my punishment for breaking a lifelong promise to God. Oh. Well, you did just, fall down a hill and have to take a bit of a hike. I think she's, physically, really... She's, physically so pushed to her limit. Just taking walks. It didn't matter how noble the cause the superior had thrust upon me was. I had been an anchoress, and now I wasn't. This is just how it's going to be, I'm afraid. What, the vomiting? This is exactly what I was talking about. You're acting hysterical. I broke a sacred vow. We had arrived at the dorms. Catherine plopped me onto the bed, but didn't let me go. Instead, she squeezed my face with her hand and bent down to peer at me. I'm no doctor, but you look ill. Just like she had done when we first met, she licked her thumb and rubbed it thoroughly against my face. And dirty, honestly. I hiccuped again, and a little more bile oozed out of my mouth onto my hood. Ugh! Stay put. I'm getting Moira. I keep conflating the voice I did with Catherine with the voice I did with Adela, and I can't figure out how to get back to the original Catherine voice that I had. She let me fall onto the pillow and left in a hurry. I groaned loudly, feeling more frustrated than unwell at this point. I closed my eyes, just for a moment. Hedwig? Moira and Catherine were looming over me, looking concerned. Moira. Oh dear, still feeling a bit off, are we? She was acting very out of sorts, and then coughed all that up again. Hedwig, is this more or less bile than you expelled yesterday? Less, I think. That'd make sense to me. She's fine, Catherine. She's only adjusting. It's not, you know... Moira let out a gentle chuckle. It's not the Black Death, Catherine. Unless you got some buboes you haven't told us about, Hedwig. Buboes? Moira reached beneath my arms and rummaged around. So sudden that I wasn't able to react. I was even more taken aback when she moved her hands between my legs and squeezed my inner thighs without warning. She's checking for, plague lumps, the freaky black growths, but, she really just, whoop! Yeah, that's where plague lumps develop, in your hot spots, in those joints, but, nothing. Catherine, you really mustn't worry. She's just not used to the air outside her cell. Bodies react strangely to changes in their environment. It's highly normal. This was humiliating. I felt like livestock being inspected for ticks. She was very weak. Not to mention, a little out of sorts. Her attitude was very strange. Catherine, I think sometimes you may just have that effect on people. Catherine looked affronted, but Moira simply took her by the shoulder and led her towards the door. She just needs a little rest again. I'll bring you some more of Darcy's mint later, Hedwig. And if you pile your clothes up, I can see to it that they get washed. I grunted in appreciation. Moira gave me a little smile and ushered Catherine out of the dormitory. Catherine, you're just fucking toxic. I shut my eyes, but unlike the last time I'd expelled all this goo, I wasn't particularly tired. I felt humiliated, stretched thin, and emotionally exhausted, but not tired. My mind was running in circles, in fact. I opened my eyes once more. If I really was to rest in my room for the afternoon, I should make something of my time. I scrambled out of bed to strip down as Moira had requested, bundling my habit into a ball and leaving it near the door. The shred of cloth I'd recovered from outside was still in my stocking. I hid it under my pillow for safekeeping. I got down on all fours to reach under the bed. I'm just... my Catherine-is-alive trutherism coming out again. I'm like, the figure she saw on the hill was Catherine. She's got a scrap of her habit. She's fine. That's why they couldn't find her head, because she's not really dead. It's somebody else. Perhaps now was the perfect time to read that play Catherine one had left for me. Have you ever read Medea? I did not make it through the whole play in one sitting, I will admit. I found the whole thing intriguing, though extremely confusing. I don't think I've read it myself either. I'm just like one of those like osmosis things. I fear that I simply didn't have room in my head for some of the knowledge required to enjoy it fully. These pagan gods and foreign ideals, they confused me. I assumed there was a point to it all that Catherine might have been able to teach me, but without her guidance, I felt lost. To be frank, the section I read was perfectly ghastly to my understanding. Yeah, a jilted wife plots to kill her husband's new lover, and the new lover's father along with her. I suppose they didn't have Bible scripture to turn to in those days, so it was an interesting window into a world before the word. However, when the heroine's thoughts wandered to murdering her own children in kind to prove the cause as much pain as she possibly could, I closed the book. It was too horrible to think about. I'm not sure what I expected, but in my memory Catherine had been so excited to share this with me, suggesting that I would appreciate its contents. What on earth could she have thought of me to assume that I would have enjoyed this, of all tales? I wasn't angry, I suppose. It was just a story, after all. I just had no clue what to make of it. Really, it hurt most that Catherine wasn't around to explain what she had been thinking when she planned to give me this. I'm sure she would have had a good answer. I did eventually doze off after reading a bit of the play. It wasn't for long, however. Moira soon arrived to take my laundry away and provided me with some more mint. Since I didn't really feel like walking around the Abbey in my nightgown in the middle of the day, I was stuck in my dormitory. I think it's more just like why are we talking about this particular kind of bad shit? Like, she has, like, no frame of reference for, like, what she could do with a play like this. This would usually suit me just fine, although with nothing but a play I'd had my fill of to read, I soon became restless. Luckily, I eventually had a knock on the door. You awake, dearie? Yes, please come in. Moira told me you were still feeling a little under the weather, so I brought you some sage water. Oh, how lovely, thank you. Charity set a pitcher and mug down on my small reading desk and sat down in the little chair. She poured a generous amount of the drink into the mug and handed it to me, which I accepted gracefully. This is very soothing. I've always swore by it myself. Drink it once a night. Would be dead without it, I reckon. Really? Maybe, maybe not, but I wouldn't take the chance and stop now. Would you? No, I suppose not. Darcy isn't half clever with plants. Could well be she's discovered a way to grow sage that'll make us last forever. Well, when we're all over 100 years old, we'll know who to thank, won't we? Charity chuckled and wagged a finger at me. Careful now, I might not be as far from that age as I look. You don't look a day over 30, Sister Charity. I couldn't help but feel jovial around Charity. We had barely spoken. There was an aura of kindness and warmth around her that I could sense immediately. Ooh, watch it, Jiggy. Has Flora been putting you up to flattery like that? No, actually, Flora and I haven't spoken all that much yet, I'm afraid. She doesn't speak much at all to anyone, until suddenly she won't shut it. Comes with her youth, I suppose. What were you like at her age? Much the same as I am now, I believe. I was in that cell the entire time. Oh, of course, stupid me. Well, you're remarkably well behaved for someone who hasn't spent any time around people. That much I can tell. Aside from all the fainting and puking. Who hasn't fainted and puked around here? You got everyone good last night with that little prank. I'm surprised Catherine didn't keel over. We're a fragile bunch. Nobody here will judge you for that. And if they do, well, let her who hasn't passed out in the Misericorde cast the first stone. I'd be meaning to ask, what actually happens in there? You know what a Misericorde is, yeah? In theory. I know that the rules of St. Benedict are less stringently adhered to in there. That's right. You can have four-legged meat in there if you fancy. It's mostly for guests who aren't expected to follow the rules, but we get so few visitors, serve a little clubhouse for us. I see. You're welcome to pop in sometime, as long as there's room. It isn't a den of sin or anything of the like, it's just a touch more relaxed. Mostly the girls play chess and complain about the superior. She let out a hearty laugh and leant over to flick my arm. I smiled back. I didn't want to get in an argument with Sister Charity of all people, especially when this was the first time we'd really spent any time together. I would like to stop in, to be sure. Only half the nuns can be in there at any given time, so let me or Marta know ahead of time if you do want to hang about. It's not a problem usually, but I do hate having to kick anyone out. Of course. Where do the other half usually spend their leisure time in the evenings? Well, we've all got our own occupations, haven't we? Darcy's got her own little projects. Margaret likes to go on wanders. Besides, it's not like the Misericorde is the only place we're allowed to relax. It's just the only place we can relax and have a spot of lamb to boot. What do you like to do? Well, Sister Marta and I will often sit in the cloister with some wine and gossip the evening away. There's a few wooden chairs down there. It's lovely on summer nights. The Misericorde is like nun pub. Oh, that is good, yeah. That sounds restorative. Not half. When the moon's high, you hardly need a torch to see. The stars are lovely to watch. I'll have to try that sometime as well. You'd be more than welcome to join us, I'm sure, although I'd worried we'd bore you to death with our old lady chatter. I'm not much of a conversationalist myself, as I'm sure you've noticed. I've merged Charity's voice into Marta's voice too, and I'm trying to bring it back. But I remember the first voice I did for her was like really high-pitched and annoying, and I don't really want to go back to that. Ah! You're better at it than Sister Angela, and that's all that really matters. Well, it's alright, girl, spit it out. She's rather mean-spirited, isn't she? Sister Charity sighed, laughing heartily. Yeah, but I remember the voice that I did, and I don't like it. Goodness gracious, that's the kindest thing anyone said about her in recent memory. Well, Sister Angela is a creep and a busybody. If she's been bullying you, come to me, I'll sort her out for you. We haven't had any run-ins that dramatic, I promise. But regardless, the offer is on the table. She was a right terror to Adela when she first showed up. Flora as well, for that matter. Though Flora might have brought that on herself just a little. I snorted, laughing into my sage water. Just a little? Thank you, Sister Charity. I will keep that in mind. There was a knock on the door. Charity held up a hand to stop me from getting up myself and stood to open it. Sister Angela was standing at the threshold, looking particularly icy. Speak of the devil!
Hello, Sister Charity. My ears were burning.
How long were you standing there listening, you gangly creep?
Not long. Your voice just happens to carry, and it would have been rude of me to interrupt.
Sorry, Angela.
Don't you dare apologize, Hedwig! I've seen the way Angela treats you, and I know the way she treats all kinds. You have nothing to be sorry for.
Yeah. You creep directly into her eyes.
The firmest I've been with Sister Hedwig is admonishing her for running in the halls. Is she, for some reason, exempt from the rules?
Oh, don't give me that. You've been staring daggers at her ever since luncheon yesterday.
You are imagining things.
I wouldn't be the only one. Have you found Catherine's cat yet? Well, I'm off. It was pleasant chatting with you, Hedwig. I'm off to see Darcy. I have some questions about nectar for her.
About nectar?
I love that as a way to angrily end a conversation. I have some questions about nectar. Goodbye. Angela sneered as Charity pushed past her into the hallway, but held off from saying anything in return. She didn't speak to me either. Instead, she simply dumped a pile of fresh clothes onto the dormitory floor and turned to leave. Thank you. She did not respond. I carried the embarrassment of that encounter around with me for the rest of the afternoon. In the hour or two I had free before supper, I wandered the halls and exchanged pleasantries with anyone who passed me by, but I was preoccupied. Supper tasted like ash. Why did I feel so wretched, given that Charity had been completely correct? Angela had treated me horribly in my brief time within her reach. There was no denying it. From the way everybody else spoke of her, it sounded like I was not the sole target of her ire either. I deserved it. The suffering Angela seemed to intent on inflicting upon me felt like appropriate punishment for all of my little sins. In fact, if that had been all I had to endure, I might say that I had gotten off lightly. An anchorite or anchoress does not break their vow. It just never happens. As I spooned my meal into my mouth, I thought about these words. Latin. 2 lines of Latin. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning egg that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of the heart. I was positively awash in sorrow. I was terrified beyond reckoning. And I was racked with a mysterious illness, one that did not seem to be life-threatening, but enhanced my sorrows and fears thrice over. I was being punished. For the next few days, I completed my tasks in silence and wandered the halls in a daze. I accepted my due. At night, the halls echoed with that familiar, incessant scratching. I would stand at the end of my old hallway, torn between returning to the comfort of my cell and fear of the demonic symbol in the walls behind it. I must apologize. I don't remember anything worth noting for a little while after that. I've got a little bit of a time skip here. We're just passing over a couple of days. Monk's fucking it up. He's got a jug, a bowl, a keg, keys. Dude knows how to party. Excuse me? I'm very sorry, My stupor lasted for several days. The superior eventually pulled me into her office and gently asked if I'd made any progress. I hadn't, of course, which meant the rest of the conversation was decidedly less gentle. Hedwig, I'm sure that I don't need to impress the importance of your task upon you again. No, not at all. It's just the path forward seems exceedingly simple to me. You haven't even broached the topic with Catherine 1. How exactly do I do that without giving the entire thing away? I would have expected that by now you would have been able to ingratiate yourself to the sisters. Can you really think of no way to elegantly approach the subject? Not that easy. I lived in a hole. This is the first people she's ever talked to. I know, right? Superior indeed. Of course it won't be easy. Speaking of the dead never is. But surely you can come up with a way to be elegant about it. I think you are vastly overestimating my social abilities. It's hardly been a week. I don't mean to be too brutish, but you haven't been drawn and quartered by any conspirators yet, have you? You're not suspected of any ulterior motives, I'm certain of it. All the more reason that starting to press now feels so difficult. The superior sighed deeply. Let's walk through things together. James told you that Catherine could vouch for him regarding his travelling cloak. I imagine there's a way to confirm this without revealing too much. How? I suppose you could ask about Catherine 1 generally. Wait, she's Catherine 2. Whatever, typos. I reset it to the pre-typo version to save our save. Respectfully, of course. And then you could, I don't know, mention you heard something about the cloaked villain arriving that morning. It is better than nothing. Sounds like you've thought about this. Maybe you should ask her. You're her superior, after all. I am your superior as well. Of course, I didn't mean... And I could not ask her for that precise reason. I am in charge of this place, and therefore everyone has their guard up around me. It doesn't make any sense. It is the way of the world. Being in charge is often more work than being charged. It is exhausting. But they'll trust me? I don't think anyone here would confide in me so readily. It is more likely that they would speak to you openly, yes. Or at the very least, they may be less inclined to choose every word so carefully. I just don't know. Hedwig, you met James. You saw him suffering. I did. Perhaps they have not shown it, but the sisters are suffering as well. Bringing the truth to light will help heal everyone. It will fix everything. Well, not the accused. I just want the truth. If the sisters are keeping secrets, it could well be that they are hiding the truth out of fear rather than malice. The cloud must be lifted, for everyone's sake, and for Catherine too's. I wish people would stop calling her that. It doesn't feel right. Catherine, too. I assure you, I mean it with the utmost affection. She took to it wholeheartedly. Her and Catherine the first. Oh, right, it's the first and the second, not 1 and 2. Yeah, 1 and 2 is such a modern primary school way of talking about people with the same name. They played some sort of game for it. It was a series of chess games, if I recall. Oh, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised at this point. It is an exceedingly popular game. It is 1450 whatever. There's nothing else to do. We don't even have the chess.com robots yet. It's just 1v1, all of us against each other. It's chess, Hedwig. You've been in a stupor all week because you haven't had anything to do. There's chess or read. And you didn't like the play. It's not just for children, if that's your apprehension. Stop being such a pussy and pick up the damn chessboard. Look, do you want to be black or white? I wouldn't say I have any apprehension. I mostly just find myself frustrated by its use as a sort of language all on its own. I think I was expecting that years and years of reading scripture would have been enough to prepare me for speaking in an abbey. Interesting. You know, I actually find it surprising none of the books you had in your cell mentioned chess. Huh. Do you think that was on purpose from Catherine II? Like, was she sending her some sort of code? Did she want Hedwig to come out? I'm on that Catherine II is the mastermind shit. She's like, she planned all of this, and she wanted Hedwig to come out of it completely ignorant about chess somehow. Or, yeah, I don't fucking know. But Catherine II as the mastermind, and she's not really dead, and she planned all of this somehow, and it all means something. That's my thing. That's my thing. It feels very old to me. There's so much written about it. As you've pointed out, it weaves through every conversation. I've known about it my whole life. It's very frustrating. It's more than just chess. I don't feel like I'm relating to these women at all. What if I taught you? Pardon? Chess, would you like to learn how to play? Would you stop feeling so ridiculous about yourself and just play chess like a normal nun? I wouldn't want to impose. Don't be silly, it's a game. It's not an imposition in the slightest. Besides, if it'll help build your confidence up somewhat. Are we going to get a chess minigame? No, I don't think it's this kind of game. Retrieving a large wooden box. She heaved it onto her desk and opened the clasps, revealing an impressively polished chessboard. She carefully laid this board on the desk and beckoned me to bring my chair closer. Ah, the good old-fashioned designs. The pawns that are just like lumps. She began removing beautifully carved pieces from the box and placing them on the board. Some were brilliant white, and others were tinted with a red hue. Oh yeah, because like it was red pieces instead of black for a long time. I think black was like showing off, like you had ebony, whereas red was a much more accessible kind of wood. Ivory. Aren't they lovely? Now that's showing off. Ivory is showing off. Very incredible. Now these common ones, that's right, the smaller ones, those are pawns. They get lined up in the front like this. They look a bit like thimbles. They do, don't they? Line them up in a row here. What does the one on the horse do? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to acquaint you with the most important pieces first. This one here is the king. I'll spare you the details of my first game. No, I want... Just gonna open chess.com and like roleplay this game. Needless to say, I did quite terribly, although not for the lack of trying. I just couldn't quite wrap my head around it. It was interesting, though. It made me realize that I couldn't remember playing any games with anyone else before. I had little rituals I performed in my cell that I suppose you might consider games. I would commit the words I was studying closely through Lectio Divinia, and then see if I could make those passages and phrases again with words I wrote while transcribing new Bibles. What, does that not count as a game? I will agree that it's different. You play a game by yourself, but it's hard to consider that competition. The spirit of the whole endeavor is something else entirely. I sound just like a Sister Adela, don't I? At the very least, playing chess with the superior was enlightening. I finally grasped why playing so-and-so moves ahead was such a helpful phrase. Fortunately for me, I could barely think through the move I was making, let alone what I do in the future. That's my problem with chess. I can't do the thinking moves ahead thing. Like, I don't know yeah. To me, anything could happen at any time in any way. Everything that happens to me is a surprise! I believe that is checkmate. Oh, so it's over. Don't be discouraged, it was your first game. You did admirably, considering. Thank you. I am more than happy to play with you more in future if you'd like. But promise me, you will ask Catherine about James's cloak, one way or another. I thought it was a tunic. Overgarment. You made a promise to him, after all. And I think both of us have had an unspoken promise to keep for Catherine II's sake, don't you? I will make sure to speak with Sister Catherine. Good girl. I will summon you again in a few days' time. She had been gesturing to me with the defeated king piece throughout this exchange. With a flick of the wrist, she placed it back in the sturdy box, along with the other pieces. I stood up to leave and bowed my head. Thank you, Your Reverence. Now, we spoke of this. Yes, of course. Until next time, Superior. She nodded and returned to tidying up the chessboard. I left the room. It was mid-afternoon. The tunes are hitting. I remember the sky looking cloudier than ever, as if the fog I had seen surrounding Lindbarrow Tor had encroached on the abbey itself. What a strange place this is, huh? I had promised the Superior I'd speak to Catherine, but I admit that I was reluctant to run straight to her all the same. If she came to me. After all, I would need to bring the topic up naturally. It was no use chasing her down. I decided to clear my head with a stroll through the gardens. My stupor had not yet cleared completely, but at least I had the energy and desire to be amongst the flowers. It was a reassuring feeling. It had been a few days since I had felt the capacity to want. Even with grey skies above, the garden was a jewel. The flowers were fewer than I imagined they might be in spring, but nonetheless the bushes, hedges, and herbs were a welcome and inviting sight. I heard rustling up ahead. To my delight, a black cat eventually emerged from the bushes. It's Kitty! There's a kitty! Show us the kitty! Kitty! Kitty. It looked at me briefly with its big moony eyes. For a moment I forgot all of my troubles. Yeah, looking at a cat will do that. Where's my cat? I think he's asleep somewhere in a sunny spot. I stepped forward to cue it. It looked at me inquisitively, but a sudden sound from the bushes startled the poor thing. It scampered away, leaving me somewhat disappointed. Oh. A figure emerged through the bushes next to me. Sister Angela! Did you see it? The cat. No, the cow. She looked entirely ridiculous. There were twigs sticking out of her hood from her attempt to squeeze through the bushes. She was breathing heavily. I suppose she must have been chasing that cat for quite some time. Of course I meant the cat. Oh, yes. Which way did it go? It sort of scurried off that way. I gestured towards the edge of the path. I was trying not to giggle at Angela's misfortune, especially given that thinking about the animosity between us had put me in a daze for half a week. I see. She glanced in the direction I had indicated, and sighed and stood up straight. If you find another opportunity, do try to seize it. Cats have no business here at the Abbey. Why not? Does it matter? I know you're not used to being outside of your cell, but I would have thought obedience would not be so foreign a concept. I am the prioress. That should be reason enough. Why do you hate me so much? Angela was busy removing debris from her hood and cowl, but I could see her arch her eyebrows even higher than I was used to. I don't hate you. Well, It certainly seems like you do. I should have perhaps saved this confrontational energy for questioning Catherine. Seeing Angela so out of sorts, I must admit, urged me to act on the feelings that I had been brewing inside of me for the past several days. That's funny. You know, I could ask you the same question. I seem to recall that I walked in on you being incredibly childish in your estimation of me. That was Charity. She egged you on. Don't be pathetic. Own your words.
You have been very cruel to me since first we met.
When you ran straight into me.
That was a mistake.
Yes, one you have made no effort to correct, it seems. I seem to recall that you barreled into me later the same day. I don't hate you, Sister Hedwig. I simply find you tiresome. I am exhausted by what you represent.
I wish you would believe me when I say I'm not after your job. I have no interest in running the Abbey. Or any Abbey, for that matter.
Even if I did believe you, which I am not saying I do, that wouldn't comfort me much at all. Succession seems to be the Superior's plan for you, even if she hasn't told you.
I'm the new chronicler, that's all.
Yet you seem to leave your job quite early each day.
I'm not a terribly prolific writer, not yet.
This is one of the first times Angela hadn't had a retort ready to fire back at me. I was so surprised it almost knocked me off balance as much as piercing reply would have.
Anyway, for my part, I don't hate you. I'm afraid of you, I think.
That's good. That means you have not yet abandoned all respect for authority.
How perfectly cruel of you to say. This is exactly what I mean when I ask, why do you hate me?
And once again, I must say I do not hate you. I hate your disregard for the natural order of things. I hate that once again I have been saddled with unruly children to rear as my own because the Superior has no interest in doing it herself.
I'm not a child.
You are a babe not 2 weeks out of the womb. You weren't alive in that cell, and choosing to break that seal is a grave sin all in its own.
Yeah, Hedwig's really holding her own, but I'm obsessed with, like, the metaphor here of Hedwig only just being born. Like, that's really accurate, I feel. You weren't alive in that cell. And here the implication that, like, choosing to be born is a sin. Again, Angela is visibly pregnant.
By my estimation, you need my help more than anyone here.
Then help me! I do not revel in my sins. I'm not proud of them. What help can you offer me beyond venom?
Do you know what this place is, Hedwig? Lynbarrow Tor is not a normal monastery. Surely you've noticed, even with your complete lack of worldly experience. Of course, but this is the last stop before the gates of hell. Do you think all the sisters here ended up in this ruin of their own volition? Do you think that there are an abundance of women in the world eager to take the veil and serve the Lord here? Make no mistake, you should be begging for my approval. You have emerged into a den of vipers, not a house of God. You shouldn't trust a word any of the sisters tell you. You should be wary of their intentions. Why, their behavior in the wake of the murder of one of their own should be evidence enough. I don't hate you, Sister Hedwig. I'm simply the only person here who cares enough not to lie to you. I have high expectations for your behavior. That is all. You, at the very least, have the potential to serve God with humility and grace here on this hill. Not like the other lost women here. The criminals, or the freaks. Christ spoke highly of the prostitutes and the tax collectors, only on the condition that they sinned no more. The sisters here, they believe they are owed salvation.
Fuck. Makes me so curious about how everybody ended up in the Abbey. Because a couple of them feel like they would have voluntarily taken the vows. Like, I can see Darcy, you know, seeing being a nun as the best way to, like, pursue her alchemical dreams as a woman in the 15th century. I could see Moira doing the same with her you know, medicinal interests and her general hospitable nature. Eustace as a scholar. I don't know. Yeah.
If that is true, Sister Angela, why...
Spit it out.
Why are you here?
Why, indeed.
And with that, she brushed the last twig out of her habit and peered down her nose at me one last time and left. Is nobody going to mention the fact that she's pregnant? Is that not it? Like, hello? How perfectly bewildering that woman was to me. Forgive me for being cross, but to this day I find her treatment of me beguiling. Beguiling? I'd spent days wondering, did I deserve this? Was Angela a conduit through which God could punish me for the sins Angela rightfully pointed out to me? I still wonder that. I've had the same thought where it's like, well, in the 15th century I would probably, take the vows. Because what's the other option? Getting married? Not for me. Hell no. I still wonder that. Yeah, well, me neither. But, that's... being religious wasn't really optional no matter where you were in the 15th century. You could... Yeah, at least you could do shit in the Abbey. Outside the Abbey, everyone still expects you to be all Jesus-y. I still wonder that. In my calmer moments, I acquiesce to the idea. In my lowest moments, I almost relish it. But the truth of the matter is, every time I was presented with her, her maddening ability to pinprick me, to always find something wrong with me. Oh, I'm doing it now, aren't I? Ignore me. All is right with the world. I am back here in my cell, where I belong. What happened? Why are you back in the hole? I deserve every bit of ire I am recounting to you. It's just that in retelling the story, I must inhabit a previous version of myself to properly describe how I felt. I will try my best not to let the past and the present bleed together too much in future. Angela huffed away after the cat. I decided I'd better head the opposite direction if I was to avoid any more unpleasantness. Oh, but you might see a cat again if you followed her. I walked back towards the rectory, the last of my mind's haze replaced with a burning indignance. I would not say I was in a good mood, but I was certainly more alert than I had been for some time. The girlies are here. There she is. Splendid! Oh, hello, Sister Margaret, Sister Catherine. We were looking for you. What luck. I had told her to look for you, and I wanted to make sure she did. Margaret has this very amusing idea that I'm a flake. Can you believe it? Anyway, we would like to cordially invite you to the Misericorde this evening. That's right. You have seemed all out of sorts recently, and little Birdie told me that Charity may have indicated that you were welcome. Which you are, as it happens. But you've been in such a state recently. Margaret got into her head that you perhaps were waiting for a more direct invitation. Which I actually suggested Catherine extend several days before you even spoke with Charity about it, I should add. Which I don't remember, but I would never accuse Margaret of lying. Hence, would you like to join us in the Misericorde tonight? I'm very grateful for the invitation. I hope you don't think I was moping around because of that, although... Oh, wonderful! I knew it couldn't have been my fault. Catherine. Margaret? Let her speak. Of course. Did Charity explain what happened after our conversation? There was nothing else mentioned. Oh, well. I looked over my shoulder and peered past the pair of sisters in front of me, just in case Angela was preparing to make another dramatic entrance. Sister Angela may have overheard the two of us speaking unfavorably about her. Is that all? No wonder she didn't say anything about it. Arguments with Angela happen all the time. It's practically passé to mention. No, you don't understand. She was extremely upset. It was horrible. You never forget your first. Thanks, Margaret. First time she caught me in the pantry at night, she dragged me by my ear to the superior's office to wake her up, to demand I be punished. Were you? Of course not! Soup mumbled something about sleep being important and shut the door. Honestly, I think it was meant more for Angela than me. Angela has it in her head that I am responsible for the cat running around the Abbey, and she will not stop bothering me about my broken door. It is a bit creaky. I'm a busy woman! Besides, I can't work with my hands. Yeah, I got that sense from you, Catherine. So I shouldn't worry about Angela? No. Not in the slightest. I considered expanding my story to include the encounter with Angela that I had just left, but decided not to pursue the subject further. I was relieved to hear that I had some support in the matter. However, I didn't want to risk continuing to invoke Angela's name lest she emerged from behind a corner or dropped from the ceiling at that very moment. What does one actually do in the Misericorde? Drink. Yes, there's a lot of wine. Is that all? Wine, as I'm sure you're aware, is a staple of life in monasteries. So this on its own was not exactly enticing. After all, there's practically an ocean of the stuff just below us. Better wine than we drink here usually, to be clear. Wine that's made for the drinking, not just for drinking. Oh, I see. There's also chess, music, if I'm feeling like breaking out the loot anyway. We read and talk. It is an oasis of pleasure here in our bored little community. Thanks, Catherine. Angela will not be attending tonight, by the way. Well, then I'd be delighted to join you. Splendid! I'm very sorry if you're feeling left out. I assure you I was not, but thank you all the same. You really worry too much, Margaret. Well then, I will see you later. The two excused themselves. Are you surprised that I agreed to attend what sounds plainly like a night of debauchery, gossip, and sin? No, because I want to see it! Well, I suppose I surprised myself too. Although, as I'm sure you've guessed, I had an ulterior motive. A wine-soaked event would be just the perfect opportunity to ask Catherine about poor James. Tongues would be looser than usual, and my questioning might not be under quite such scrutiny. I explained all this to the superior, who pulled me aside after supper to see if I had fulfilled my promise. The Misericorde. Yes, it seems like the best way for me to talk to Catherine about it. It'll seem natural. And it didn't feel natural at any other point you saw her today? When she was giving you this invitation, perhaps? Margaret was with her. I see. Well, I don't love the prospect, but as long as you get the result we need, I can't stop you. Is there something wrong with the Misericorde? It's the name of the game. It is a space with explicitly relaxed rules. To be honest, I'm surprised you aren't more vocally opposed. Well, it's a rule unto itself, is it not? I cannot argue with tradition. I see. You're a stickler, but not a spoil-sport. Something like that? I can understand that, I suppose. The problem is, given that most rules around here are quite lax, the bar is raised a bit higher in there, I think. Angela certainly cares about the rules. Well, she's the prioress, that's her job. Although she might go a little too far in the other direction for my taste. What is your ideal picture for this place, then? I'd be curious to know. That's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking. The superior swelled the cup she... She's doing one of these things. It would be much the same, truthfully. The buildings wouldn't be in such disrepair. I wouldn't have to suffer such direct insubordination on a regular basis, but I certainly wouldn't rule by the sword. That's the trouble with the Misericorde as it exists now. I have no quarrel with the concept of an easement in the dam, but I'm not sure there's much of a dam currently. What do you mean? Children should be expected to have secrets. Towns need inns. The workers in the fields, the lowliest peasants, deserve their holidays. Precepts must be upheld, but I think they can only be upheld if people are allowed at least the illusion of breaking them. That is surprising, to say the least. She's right, though. That is how authority works. You disagree, then? That's understandable. Well, for one, are we not nuns? Is it not Nunday Sunday? Foregoing earthly delights is our strength and purpose, surely. It would seem we have reversed positions here. Flipped the chessboard around the other way, as it were. Well, in my ideal abbey, everyone is content. They do their tasks and enrich their lives and serve as vessels of prayer, and then they are allowed a brief respite, so that they do not become overwhelmed or discouraged by their work. I spent my whole life alone in a cell with my words, and not once did I complain. It was totally fine. I only came out and started throwing up bile everywhere, was incapable of speaking to anyone for a week, and just keep having visions of things. It's great! Fun is unnecessary. The superior tilted her head in a manner that reminded me of the cat I'd seen Angela chasing earlier that day. Was the superior just diagnosed with catgirl? Did you never dream of leaving? Was there nothing in your books that you wished you could see for yourself? Never. The writing was enough. You must have a truly vivid imagination. I'm not sure I do. I just never needed anything else. You never sang to yourself, invented little games. Well, I did have a few reading games, now that you mention it, but perhaps that is how we arrive at an understanding, then. You were perfectly content in the world as you experienced it, but you still needed to come up with something of your own, something different. That's the ideal purpose of the Misericorde, the tavern, the arena, and so on. I find that very hard to swallow. Would you say the same of prostitution? The superior made a sneering gesture that took me aback. You are flailing your way out of check here, I am afraid. There's no need to grasp at such extreme examples. Of course, I don't feel that way about whoring. And don't retort by asking if I find whores beyond redemption then, by the way. I wouldn't. Wouldn't make any sense. You're quite right. She finished her drink in silent satisfaction. I wonder if any of the sisters here were sex workers. I steamed for a minute. I'm afraid that she was actually entirely correct in her assumption that pivoting the conversation back to scriptural understanding was my intended reply. I find the Misericorde in its current state unseemly. The rules here aren't being followed outside of it, let alone inside of it. I worry about what the sisters could be up to in there. It ceases to be an easement if the whole plane is flooded. Well, I'll be careful. I'm sure one night with the others won't utterly corrupt me. See that it doesn't. I suppose it can't hurt for you to experience it for yourself, and report back to me exactly how founded my assumptions are. If you're that worried about it, why not just disallow it? It is an expected function of a Benedictine monastery. Besides, I have no interest in making these women respect me less. Would they respect you less if you took it away? Or would they respect you more if you showed that you had that power? I dare say I'd be the next one found without a head. I shuddered. While I was never completely free from fear, direct confrontation with the reality of my situation still unmoored me. It made me feel like I was being watched. Please don't say such things. I am simply making a point. As I have said before, I must play a very cautious strategy in my position. Speaking of, would you like to play a game? A jigsaw moment. Change of subject was a relief, I must admit. We whittled away some time playing chess. I was not very good at it yet, I must confess. Nonetheless, I appreciated the opportunity to fill my mind with something beyond visions of blood and guts. After I finish this stream, I'm going to fucking open chess.com. This game's release was perfectly timed for the fucking chess boom. Hedwig will be joining us tonight. Oh, really? Lucky her. We had just left the rectory after the evening meal. There was apparently still some time before the Misericorde's doors would open. We had a little bit of time to while away preparing myself for a night in the lion's den. Don't make such a fuss about it. Why not? We're just happy to have you. Well, I am happy to hear it. But nonetheless, you're making me nervous. We'll have so much fun. Such a special occasion, honestly. Special? Well, yes, isn't this going to be your first time ever going to a social event? Careful. Don't break her. Sorry. Felt like I was about to faint. Moira was completely correct, of course. Never in my life had I been to anything more sociable than meals in the rectory, and those have been overwhelming enough on their own. I'm going to do my best to have a good time. That's all that matters. It'll be fun. What are we going to do, anyway? Suppose we don't really do anything specific. It's very fluid. We've got a chessboard. I think Catherine mentioned that there's music sometimes. I'll bring my lute. Fuck yes, fuck yes, yes, yes. You have your own lute? Yes. Catherine the second gave it to me ages ago. One day I should ask Catherine if she could nick the portative for an evening rather than just disabling it. Could be fun to mess around with. I wish you wouldn't fiddle around with the Superior's things. It's all in good fun. The soup knows. I'm not so sure.
Hedwig, you're getting too nervous again.
Moira had seemed so carefree ever since that day she broke down while talking to me in the dormitories. I was jealous of her ability to have that be her one emotional outburst on such a horrible subject. Yeah, I really wish I was a kind of one and done emotional person where it's like, okay, I got all my feelings out, now that's over, I can move on with my life. It's like, no, I just gotta linger here forever. It was as if she'd simply been able to drain the abscess and heal the wound. I wish that I could do the same. Unfortunately, every one of my fears and miseries seem to linger and fester within each other. Yeah, it's not like that, really. There's probably a lot going on in Moira's head that we just don't have access to. If my head was a diseased limb, I'd simply have to lop it off. Okay, now hold on. We're getting into some 18th, 19th century lobotomy stuff here. The sun was just starting to set. I decided to go for a walk in the garden. It was one of the best places for me to clear my head that didn't involve drawing a bath, provided I didn't run into Angela at least. But what were the odds of that happening again? I was determined to make real, tangible progress tonight. The Superior was right to be frustrated with the lack of momentum. The poor young man had begged me to do something to secure his freedom, and then I had slipped into a dark spell for days. I had been selfish. It wasn't going to be impossible. Things weren't so bad. I even had a clue to follow up on. It would be easy to ask Catherine about the cloak when we both had a few cups of wine. There was nothing to worry about. I was genuinely interested, after all. What would I tell Catherine if she asked how I knew about the cloak? Heavy. Oh, hello. I want to show you something. You gotta come see. Very well. Darcy moments. Darcy scurried off around the bend toward the cloister before I could finish my reply. I had to hike up my robe to keep up with her without tripping on the stairs. She was leading me to the dorms, it seemed. Wherever it was she had to show me, I could not guess. I'm sorry about the mess. I lost an important mushroom, and I've been turning the page upside down looking for it. She'd ushered me into her room in the dormitory. It was a stark contrast from my own. There were bits and bobs everywhere. Can you see the important mushroom? Haphazardly stacked books, bottles of various sizes, both empty and full, little scraps of paper, plants in little pots. Darcy had certainly made the space hers. I've been working on this for a while. I think you might be interested. She was standing in front of a small cauldron that was full of thin, clear liquid that smelled a bit like wet grass. You've been sick and sad a lot lately, and I thought, well, maybe I could do something about that. Do something? Did you make this for me? It is something I'm fiddling with. Make it feel better, maybe. What's in it? I didn't want to sound rude, but I couldn't help but think that what might happen to me if I drank something Darcy had brewed. Come on, girl, get on the visions. You know you want them. It has some St. John's work and some sage and some water from the hills. St. John's work, she's making it a medieval antidepressant. I bought it all together with some other things, but I forget. I had mint for flavor though. Mentha. That's right. She ladled some of the liquid into a little bottle. The whole setup was a little precarious. I lunged forward to stop the wobbling cauldron from plummeting to the floor as Darcy knocked it about with his sleeve. Ooh, steady on me! Good thing I was here. Anyway, try some. Darcy, is this quite alright for me? Yeah, literally an antidepressant and probably some stomach stuff. Darcy knows what's up. She's good at this. She's a real alcovisionist. What do you mean? I have a frail constitution, and this is very, 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 very light. Do not worry. You think I could drink this without any trouble? If I did it right, it will in fact lessen your troubles. That's very kind of you. I am not being rude. I just, the Bible often reminds us to remain sober-minded. You are not sober-minded. You are sad a lot and lonely as well. I was very worried while you were not talking very much. Yeah, I'm not very good at talking, so I didn't want to butt in while you were saying precious true things. You should have made me sad. See that, so I wondered what I could do to help. You should help me remain sober-minded. The world is strange. There's much to be sad about. Even here, of course. There's no better way to face the sadness than to be prepared. That's all it is. The Bible says take the fucking Lexapro. No, but for real, she's such a... I love Darcy. She knows what's up. She's armed in the combat of her own mind. She held the little vessel out to me. Well, I took it from her and gingerly took a sip. It was surprisingly thick, though it didn't taste as bad as I'd imagined. Maybe the mentha helped after all. Darcy beamed at me and took the bottle back from me, filling it up and closing it with a stopper before passing it back to me. Some more for later if you fancy.
I don't feel any different. Wait, is St. John's wort one of those things that makes alcohol worse? Because I don't know what compounds in it. I just know that it's kind of like used as like a folk remedy in terms of being an antidepressant that you shouldn't take with like prescribed antidepressants. I don't know, serotonin syndrome, what might happen to you. But yeah, there are a lot of antidepressants where they will impact alcohol, which is one of the reasons why I don't drink anymore. I have a lot of reasons why I don't drink anymore, but one of the big ones is that a single beer will just flatten me. I don't feel any different. You take a little bit, but I'm sure it will relax you before tonight. Oh, that would be nice. Will you be joining us in the Misericorde as well? To fucking make sure she doesn't get absolutely sloshed hammered off a drug, interaction. No, I will be busy with other things. The odds were increasing that I would have to deal with Angela in a social setting that night. The idea was not relaxing in the slightest, and actively worked against whatever Darcy's potion might have been doing for me at that very moment. You left, friend. You'll feel like a real member to Abby after tonight, I reckon. This is not going to be some sort of hazing, is it? Goodness, no. How was the pranks? Right. I got you good. True enough. She smiled at me once more, and then ushered me out of her dorm. I don't mean to rush you, but I have some work to do. Oh, not at all. Thank you for the tincture. I hope it serves you well. I gave a little nod of thanks and hurried out of the room. There was yet some time to while away before it would be appropriate to head to the Misericorde. You gotta be fashionably late, Hedwig. I decided I would hole up in my dorm and calm myself with some reading. A splendid idea until I realized I had currently no books in the room save for one. I really should ask the superior to move my collection out of the cell and into my dormitory. Medea simply wouldn't do for now. I felt a little apologetic. I of course still appreciated the gift Catherine had given me by transcribing the play for me, but I was not sure that it was something that would help me feel any less tense at the moment. I needed something like Ecclesiastes, not a story about a pagan woman murdering her children. I lay down on the bed and held the little bottle Darcy had given me up in the air. I rotated it in my fingers and stared at it. There were no words on it, but I was still trying to read it, I think, if that makes any sense at all. I could feel the cool glass getting warmer between my fingertips. If I ran my thumb over the cork, I could sense just how much rougher the cork was than the bottle. The longer I did it, the easier it would be to notice the sounds the bottle made as well. The gentle sloshing of the liquid inside, and the way the stopper brushed against my skin. It absorbed me utterly. I wondered perhaps if Darcy's concoction was working after all. After several minutes, I was so engrossed in the patterns of light dancing through the dark green bottle that I scarcely had room in my mind to think about anything else. Do you ever do that? Feel an object every which way until it feels like everything? I don't have any more of that tincture in me, but I still try from time to time. The sacred act of rereading and repeating a single line of scripture over and over until it almost feels meaningless. Until the words are just sounds and the letters are just shapes. That is how I spent many of my days and nights in my cell, breaking through all stray thoughts and bypassing all frivolous interpretations of the word, simply living inside the true meaning of it, reaching understanding through feeling rather than language. For a moment, I was that little bottle. We are getting started in the Misericorde now. I just thought I'd tell you as early as possible in case you plan on being fashionably late. Hey, I made that joke. Coming! The clarity that I had been enjoying burst like a bubble, and I was thrown right back into nervous anticipation. Mindfulness. I rose from the bed and did my best to straighten out my robe. While doing so, the tincture fell from my trembling fingers. Luckily, it didn't shatter. It bounced once and then rolled around the cold stone floor, making a cold twinkling noise. Are you all right in there? Yes, sorry, I just dropped something. I scrambled to pick the bottle up, unsure if it was some contraband I would get in trouble for holding if Catherine, or worse, Angela, saw. Plus, I was so nervous. The tincture now safely in hand, I uncorked it and downed the second dose. It was cool, pleasant, and minty, and I could practically feel myself physically relaxing. How much of this are you supposed to take? It was like the cold concoction was replacing the black bile that ran in my blood with something else, something much more agreeable. I slapped my own cheeks to bring out some color, and shivered all over. I was ready. I opened the door to meet Catherine, who was leaning against the door frame, examining her fingernails.
You look significantly less terrible than the first time I collected you like this. I feel quite good, actually. Hold still. She stood up straight and licked her thumb as she had once before. This time I was prepared. Isn't this like the second time she's done this? She rubbed it against my forehead, undoubtedly attending to some wayward bit of hair poking out from underneath my cap. There we are. Not bad. We'll make a little princess out of you yet. This isn't a princess maker, though. I don't have stats. Catherine turned on her heel and strode out of the dorms, and I followed close behind into the hall. As we passed the library, the door opened a crack. Is it time already? Indeed it is. Are you coming tonight? Not tonight. I'm very busy. That's a shame. You tell me all about it next time you're here to chronicle. Have fun. I suddenly remembered something important I'd been meaning to ask Eustace. In my miserable stupor, I'd completely forgotten to ask her about Darcy's vision. I leant forward to speak quietly, aware that others behind me were watching. So it wasn't as if Darcy's visions were a secret. Oh, before you go, I was meaning to ask, could I read some of your notes about Darcy's visions sometimes in the near future? No. Really? I find them ever so interesting. She said I should ask you about them. I'm saying no. Have a nice night, Hedwig. She closed the door firmly. It is rather a pity she's not coming. She'd be quite fun with enough wine in her. Anyway. She gonna talk about how many ducks she can fight again? In here. Catherine opened the door to the Misericorde and held it open for me, ushering me in as if she were a deckhand on a gangway. Inside the room was a round table, rather different from the one in the rectory. Clearly quite old, it was full of pockmarks and dents. Some parts of it were shiny, but others were quite dull. Various mismatched chairs were haphazardly placed around the table, as well as a couple next to a fireplace at the far end of the room. There were no windows. Currently light was being provided by the hearth, as well as a large candelabra in the corner nearest the door. Well, here we are. Hello, Hedwig.
Hello, dear.
Welcome, welcome. There were two other figures I could see tending to the fire. The smaller one on the left I deduced was Flora. The one on the right, unfortunately... Angela! Goodness, it's been a while since I've seen you in here. Yes, well, some of us have better things to do than spend every possible night reveling. Oh, good, we're getting prickly before any drinks have even been poured. This should be fun.
Give it a rest, you two. Surely you can be nice to each other for one night.
Of course. We wouldn't want to leave Hedwig with the wrong impression, would we? I agree. We can't let her leave without recognizing what a shrew you can be.
Catherine!
What? I was agreeing with dear sister Angela. Can we at least declare a temporary truce? For Hedwig's sake? I am willing. Why are you even here? Now you're just being childish. No, just curious. Are you intending to spoil things for the newcomer? Am I spoiling things currently? Oh, here we go. You're very good at this game.
Oh, hell!
I jumped. It barely registered me at first that this exasperated growl had come from Sister Charity.
You're both as bad as each other. Stuff it for one night. You can bicker in your own time, but me and everyone else here to have a nice, relaxing evening. And you're bloody well not going to ruin it. Sit down. Shut your gobs. Drink and make merry. Or else.
Make merry or else.
It's lovely to see you here, Hedwig.
I smiled. I wasn't as rattled as I probably should have been. It was Darcy's concoction. Or perhaps seeing Catherine and Angela at each other's throats had awoken a slightly unsavory sense of curiosity within me. What does that mean, Hedwig? Huh? What? I sure hope this doesn't awaken anything in me. God damn. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, you sure fucking are. That's good. This'll be fun. Right, Catherine? That's right. I must admit, even with my newfound courage, and despite how amusing it was watching her spar with Catherine, Angela's presence made me slightly uneasy. Since only half of the sisters could occupy the Misericorde, I had been hoping, perhaps assuming giving her personality, the odds of missing her were in my favor. Alas. Alas!
Martyr and I brought up some of the good wine earlier, and I believe Darcy is cooking something especially for the meal.
The meal? We just ate. It'll be a bit later on. Besides, you'll want some. I should resist, but the call of red meat is too strong. I opened my mouth to protest. The rule of St. Benedict strictly prohibited red meat, for I remembered that in this room the rule had no say. Touch circuitous, if I must say so myself. The rule states that nothing should be preferred over the holy office, the works we did, and the hours we observed. And yet here this place was offering a sanctuary for everyone to do nothing but prefer worldly things. At this point, I had lost count of all the infractions this abbey had made on the rule of St. Benedict. Poor Darcy. She's really very busy, isn't she? I think Eustace or Moira is helping tonight.
And it's a bit less complicated than supper. It's just meat and heat, more or less, isn't it? I am sure there is an art to it, as there is to all things.
Wise as always. Charity then ushered me to sit down at the table. There were several mugs and a very large wineskin resting in the middle of the table. There was also a full cask next to the table on the floor that I had not noticed previously. It was a little smaller than the fat barrels I had seen stacked in the cellar, but nevertheless. That's a lot of wine.
And thank God for that.
You have plenty of us here to help finish it, don't you worry.
Yes, don't feel like you need to drink it all. I'll have what she doesn't have.
You are going to watch yourself. I won't hear the end of it from the superior if you go on a bender.
Margaret patted Charity on the shoulder and then took a seat. I could see a shelf in the corner of the room near the fireplace. Oh, she was going to say lose your head, but Catherine. Oops. It was rather unkempt and loaded with various mishmashed objects. I see books of different sizes stacked haphazardly atop each other, little chess pieces, and a lute fighting for space. There were bits of fabric and what looked like a full robe stuffed in between these bits and bobs as well. So, are there any plans for the evening? I hope not. She's all the way over there. She's like in the corner.
A little bit of everything, dear.
But most importantly, a lot of nothing. That's the idea, anyway. I see. I had done a lot of nothing by myself in my cell. I missed it dearly. But I was curious what these women found so exciting about it. That's the best bit of any holiday, isn't it? Doing nothing.
You're not wrong, dear Flora, but don't tell the superior I said so.
Catherine picked up the wineskin and began depositing drink into the cups.
Now, make sure your elders get some before it's gone.
I wouldn't dream of depriving you, Charity. Catherine handed her the next mug. That's right. Catherine is always grateful to not be eldest in the room. That was actually quite good.
I was merely surprised that Angela was able to come up with something so witty.
Pour me one next. I get the feeling I'm going to need it. Just a small one for me to start, I think.
Nonsense!
She handed me a full mug.
So, are you going in strict order of age?
She must be. I haven't gotten a drink yet.
Hedwig is younger than I am, so no.
Bold of you to admit. Not as biting the second time.
Charity got hers first because she is our beloved and respected elder. Margaret got second since she asked so nicely. Hedwig was next because she's a new guest and would have been second if Margaret hadn't requested so forcefully.
Sorry, Hedwig.
No offense taken. Next, I don't know. Why not a dealer? There you are. I very graciously will go last as I am pouring the drinks, which leaves Flora and Angela, which, let's see. I will give Flora hers first to prove once and for all that I am not discriminating against her youth. I only hope that Angela will accept this decision and not see it as a slight against her. I assure her there is no such ulterior.
Can you just give us the fucking wine?
I love Flora. She's so 19. Language!
She finished pouring the drinks and passed them to Flora and Angela. Neither of whom looked particularly amused. Margaret was thoroughly enjoying herself, though. Thank you. Indeed.
Now, Hedwig, tell us what you think of this wine. It's a fair bit nicer than the stuff we typically have throughout the day.
Charity's voice is all over me. I'm sorry, Charity.
It has real flavor.
I took a tentative sip. I was surprised to find that I recognized the taste instantly. Oh, I've had this before, actually. How? Oh dear. I couldn't say, actually, but I'm sure someone must have brought it to me with a meal at some point. Perhaps on Christmas? Oh, yes. That sounds like something Catherine II might do.
She knew her wines, that one.
She knew more about it than most do here do, yes.
Are you and Marta still fighting about the sherry? I came here to do a job. I have nothing against Sister Martha, but I wish she would let me do it. I know. I can't do anything about that, though.
Adela huffed and nodded, sipping her drink.
This is good. Not as good as I could help make, but it is very good.
What's different about sherry, Sister Adela?
Oh, don't get her started. It is a better fermentation process. The end product is sweeter.
That's hard to believe, given what I tasted. I mean, I do believe you, it's just, you know.
It should not be tasted halfway through being made. Does the painter show their client the work before they have painted a face? Does the chef deliver a half-cooked meal?
She's got a point. Of course, I'm just more impressed.
I was asked to come here and help shepherd a batch of sherry. The first one was a complete disaster because instructions were not followed. Now I am trying to correct this with the second batch, and I'm facing the same resistance. Marta is very protective of her work. I think she does not like me. I think she does not want some Iberian dirtying up her project.
She stuck her finger into her drink and violently wiggled it around to emphasize her point. I had to duck to dodge flecks of wine. I promise you, it isn't all bad as that. She's just...
I think it might be exactly as bad as that. She has no other reason to get in my way.
She treats me like a child, too. It might just be an age thing.
I very much doubt it. She does not see me as Spanish. Margaret, murder doesn't treat you any differently than anyone else, does she?
Oh, crumbs. No, it's fine. It's just that if I say no, I might not actually indicate what you're hoping it does. Charity looked as if she was trying to decode a particularly difficult puzzle. Margaret smiled, perhaps humorously, and sipped her drink. Have you seen any more ghosts, Hedwig? Ghosts? Oh, no, I have not.
I feel like ghost talk around here has dropped significantly recently. Hedwig's goat-hating swordsman excluded, of course.
Thank goodness for that. It's all rubbish.
Oh, I don't know about that. You don't get to be my age without seeing a few queer things here and there.
I've seen some ghosts. There's at least one on this floor alone, I reckon.
Yes, I've had them too.
It's a shame Darcy isn't here. She always has plenty to say on this subject. Well, you can ask her when she brings the beef. Perhaps out in the hall where the rest of us won't be subject to such nonsense. I seem to recall somebody asking for an escort to the Privy at night just in case she encountered something. That's just common wisdom. That has nothing to do with spirits or fairies or any such fantasy. There are bears or strange men. Bears? Yes, bears. There are bears around here? No.
Absolutely not.
Not that I've ever seen. I have seen a bear up close once, but that was before I ended up here.
I have too. They're very cute, but quite dangerous. Why are these women seeing bears? Hello? Why have both of you encountered a bear?
At any rate, there are no bears anywhere near here. They don't live in England, or Scotland, or Ireland. I cannot believe I am being treated like a fool for worrying about bears while you are all entertaining the notion of ghosts wandering our halls.
Well, if they don't live here.
Not naturally, of course, but kings and nobles and other rich men keep them for sport. They import them from Bohemia. So you think some nobleman is going to stick a bear on you while you're on the way to the toilet? You're trying far too hard to make me sound hysterical. Bears are strong and crafty creatures. This is the counterpart to the Eustace can fight every duck conversation. One could easily slip loose and escape into the woods. It only takes two to proliferate. You cannot tell me this has not happened. There was nothing but silence for a moment. Then suddenly everyone erupted with laughter.
Bears! Proliferating! Watch out!
And they cannot stand women pissing at night. Grow up!
You must admit, Angela, it sounds a bit ridiculous.
Far-fetched, at least.
It is nonsense. Angela, I am surprised. I had no idea you were worried about this.
Well, I apologize for not wanting to risk being torn in half by a vicious beast or violated by some murderous cur at night. After all, only half these things have happened here, so why worry about either? Jesus Christ, that's a bomb on the fucking conversation, huh?
Angela.
Not in here.
No, I think there is no better place to talk about it.
The silence came back. This time it felt like the very air had been sucked out of the already stuffy room. Everyone was looking in different directions. I could hear heavy, deep breaths.
Time for meat!
Adela stood up first and strode over the door, unlatching it and holding it open so that Darcy could lumber in, carrying a massive platter of food. Oh, meat! Everyone sort of shuffled awkwardly to move the cups and wineskin out of the way. Darcy plucked the platter down and dusted her hands off with a satisfied expression on her face.
You have beef and lamb and a bit of pork here, coated in a special sauce, cooked to perfection over a roaring fire by yours truly. Why's your so glum?
We're just hungry, Darcy, thank you. Darcy's nigh impervious smile flickered just a little. Alright then. They got 3 different kinds of meat in the Misericorde for like, what is this, like 8 people? Not even, like 6. There's so much meat for this few amount of people. Well, enjoy. Aren't you going to have some?
Oh, no, allowed.
Not outside of the Misericorde, no, but you're here now. Even seeing Darcy's mouth twitch was heartbreaking enough that I felt compelled to do whatever I could to make her feel better. Luckily, she took to my logic quite well.
I suppose I am, aren't I?
There are too many people in here.
Oh, for Pete's sake, Angela! You go and stand outside while she eats then.
Angela's chair scraped violently against the stone floor. Couldn't help but wince. She can stay. Have a good night, everyone.
A touch dramatic, Sister Angela.
Hedwig?
Yes, Sister Angela.
Nothing. Not now. I won't spoil your evening. With that, she swept herself out of the room. All eyes turned to Darcy, who was blissfully munching on a small piece of meat hanging off a bone. Fuck yeah. She's gone for the ribs.
I couldn't possibly say sorry. Busy night.
She finished her snack and then licked her fingers. Enjoy. Have a good night, Darcy.
Indeed.
Darcy excused herself from the room. Margaret followed behind her to latch the door shut again, and then turned around to face the rest of the sisters. Well.
Should one of us flag Eustace down, perhaps?
She's also busy tonight. Hedwig and I stopped in on her way here. Moira? Martha?
Martha's probably asleep now.
Well, it's one of those two. Or the soup. Could you imagine?
Where is Moira at the moment?
I believe she is usually in the library or reading in her dorm at this hour.
She'll be in her dorm then. Eustace seemed in no mood for the visitors.
Flora, would you be a dear?
I just started eating.
I'm only asking you to go down the hall. Fruit will still be here when you get back.
Well, I've seen you lot eat before.
Now! Cheeky little.
I'm going. It was certainly not as relaxing as I had been led to believe. That being said, I was still feeling surprisingly confident. I think perhaps I was even finding some relief in the fact that this particular spat had unfolded without me at the center of it. You ever feel that way? You ever see two people arguing and you're like, that's not my problem. Bye! In fact, I was barely involved in the kerfuffle at all. Charity forced a smile.
Well, best not let things go cold.
It was a murmur of approval from the others. We all moved our chairs slightly closer to the overflowing platter of sugared meat. Oh, fuck yeah, with the crust on it.
I do not understand why Angela is so cruel. I am positive she's gotten worse as well.
She's always been an insufferable coxcomb.
What should we drag it all out? She's left. No use quarreling with someone who's not even here.
To be fair, Charity, Hedwig is here because Angela overheard you two grousing about her.
Yes, well, that's different.
It's not fair if you get to have all the fun.
Well, I was under the impression that Angela wanted to come tonight to apologize to Hedwig for her behavior.
Huh. That does seem a bit far-fetched.
No, it's true. I apologized to her for my outburst, and she agreed to apologize to Hedwig for her roughness.
Is that true, Sister Charity? This did stretch credulity, but I was curious. Angela's barbed words had wrapped around me so tightly, even the slightest bit of slack was a relief. We've been going for like, nearly 3 hours now, so we'll wrap this up just a little bit. Maybe get to the 3-hour mark or finish the scene or whatever happens first. And then I'll give my voice a break and we'll finish for the night. The morning.
Of course. On condition that you also apologized, I think. A fresh start for all of us.
I have nothing to apologize to that woman for. Well, not a thing. Well, if she wants an apology, I'm obliged to hear what she has to say and do my best to make amends. Catherine's upper lip curled harder than I'd ever seen it curve before. She will hang whatever complaint she has over your head for the rest of your life. Apology or no. Believe me, I've been there. Really? Oh, yes. I've done that song and dance for her. She just enjoys watching people squirm. How cruel.
She wasn't always like this.
I do not care. It's true, though. It's a shame. What happened? If I knew, things might look a little different.
It has certainly gotten worse since Catherine II passed on.
That's true for all of us. And she got along worse with Angela worse than I do. This was difficult to imagine. It's very interesting indeed. Why is that? It's actually a bit funny.
I remember them getting along very well, to be honest.
They were friendly at one point, but I mostly remember them clashing. So, Hedwig, I had mentioned to you before that Catherine II loved foisting projects and hobbies on us. I remember. Well, for a while it was... Should we say this? For a while it was bawdy literature. What? Fabuleux, as it were. You mean love poems? Romantic writing? No. Well, perhaps. Have you really never read any? I'm afraid I had nothing quite so ribald in my cell. It can certainly be romantic, although I think they're more concerned with the, fruits of romance. A particular part of romance. The intercourse. The fucking... Thank you, Margaret. I nearly choked on the bit of lamb I was eating. You were all reading that sort of thing here. Catherine could get it. Oh dear. Her wheels are coming off. It's really quite common for monks to write this sort of thing. It helps ease tensions, I suppose. And Catherine II thought, why not us? It might be a healthy exercise. For what purpose? For the fun of it. Purely for the thrill. Oh, come on. Angela's pregnant. God knows we're not allowed to have any fun in here. That's not true. Not that kind.
Hedwig, dear, it really is not all that strange. After a few more weeks here, you'll probably realize just how little there is to do. It was something new and entertaining the girls were interested in.
Well, I understand, but... Latin quote about fornication. Yes, we've studied that bit of the Bible here and there, actually. Sorry, I just don't see how writing that sort of thing is appropriate for women of our station. The sisters all looked at each other with slightly concerned expressions. The confidence I had brought into the room with me was rapidly draining. Felt like I'd accidentally cast myself as an outsider to be scorned once again. Well, we endeavoured to keep most of it in here. In the Misericorde, after all. We're eating red meat. The rule of St. Benedict might wane in here, but it sounds more like purely biblical instructions being broken.
Hedwig, the gentlest and most pious monk I ever had the pleasures of working with years and years ago now, used to write beer recipes in the margins of his Bibles. And I remember meeting him for the first time delivering food to a village that had come down with the plague. He told the most outrageous jokes I'd ever heard in my life, and I could hardly walk from laughing. All while risking ourselves to help the diseased and dying. Do we deserve hell for a few bawdy japes? True, real shit. This was not an argument worth having. It depends on the jokes, I would think. Everyone else laughed. I was stunned by Catherine's ability to say the exact words I wanted to say with the exact opposite meaning. Tell us one!
Yes, go on.
Well, alright. As long as Hedwig is quite alright with it.
I smiled meaninglessly. Felt like a bear showing off my teeth. Please, don't hold back on my account. A trial by fire for dear Hedwig.
Very well, very well. Here it is. He told me about a nun he had worked with before who had been a midwife, much like myself. Before she joined her convent, she had been assisting her lady with a particularly rough birth. Poor thing just could not get out. Midwife took a look between her lady's legs and the lady said, "Oh, what if it comes out of the other hole? I forget which road my husband took."
The others erupted in raucous laughter. Catherine was practically doubled over. I don't get it. It's about anal sex, Hedwig. Think about it. What do roads have to do with it? Babes typically come out of the... You know. Yes, that much I know, thank you. I actually wasn't sure you would, so that's a relief. Is that in the Bible? I'm capable of a fair amount of deduction on my own. I may have spent a long time myself, but I'm not a complete fool. That's fair, that's fair. So you know a rough outline of how it all works? Yes. Well, there you go then. All the pieces are within your grasp! So... Oh no. She got there. How does that... Why? Does that work? No, that is the joke. So the joke is that her husband was quite stupid and... Well, it's very possible, but that's not the thrust of it. No. Think harder, Sister Hedwig. I was rescued by the sound of the door swinging open. Found her. Hello, everyone. You lot ate all that while I was gone. There's still plenty of food. What took you so long? Couldn't find her. Sorry for giving you the runaround. I ran into Darcy and was chatting with her, and then I went for a walk in the garden. Would Angela not make it? She got her fill of the attention she wanted. Let's not get back into it. No, I could talk about it all night. That's the problem. Fair enough. Well, now that we're back up to fighting strength, what to do? Should we play a game? I'd love to play some chess. Later, I'm not feeling particularly strategic yet. She reached for the wineskin and poured herself a generous refill. I'll get there, I'm sure. Oh, what's happening? Okay, we just changed the scene. Well, I think we'll take that as sort of like a stopping off point. I know we're in the middle of a scene, but I feel like we're going to be hanging out in the Misericorde a lot because it is the name of the game. But my voice is going, and so is my attention. And I'm sitting there with a ring light, like real close to my face, and like, oh, bright lights. I'm so sensitive to all kinds of input. I can't really stream for very long. But thank you very much for coming out, for having a look, for joining once again for Nunday. Yes, I do. I have a ring light. My brother works at JB Hi-Fi. I have a lot of bits. Yes, thank you for coming out. Hopefully next Nunday we will be back. Check my socials, Twitter and Tumblr, and I will be saying timing. But presume Nunday again once more. Thank you. Mwah.